The piercing cold seemed to linger deep within her bones. Lin Xia jolted awake, gasping for breath. Her chest felt as though it were filled with ice-chilled lake water. The suffocating, tearing agony made her curl up instinctively. She stretched out her hands and clutched the bed sheets beneath her tightly. The texture beneath her palms felt unfamiliar. It was not the rough, stiff rags perpetually reeking of mildew from the end times. Instead, it was high-grade silk bedding carrying a faint woody fragrance. Lin Xia drew in warm, fresh air. Her wildly pounding heart gradually steadied. She lifted her head and swept her gaze across the surroundings. A spacious, bright bedroom, custom furniture of understated luxury, and rare orchids blooming in the sunroom. This was her top-floor penthouse at Jinjiang Mansion. Sunlight streamed unobstructed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, spilling over the solid wood flooring and casting a warm glow. Lin Xia froze. She held up her hands and stared at her fair, smooth fingers, free of any frostbite or scars. These were the hands of someone who had lived a life of comfort, not those of a woman who had struggled to survive at the bottom of society for 3 years amid the apocalypse. The phone on the nightstand flickered, displaying several unread business briefings. Lin Xia snatched up the device, her eyes fixed rigidly on the date on the screen. August 25th, exactly 30 days remained until the global extreme cold apocalypse descended. She had truly been reborn. She had returned to this turning point where she had lost everything once, yet now held boundless possibilities. Lin Xia closed her eyes, and memories of her previous life surged uncontrollably through her mind. 30 days later, black snowflakes would fall from the sky without warning. Within just 2 hours, global temperatures would plummet off a cliff. The sweltering summer heat of 30 degrees Celsius would give way abruptly to a bitter cold of -20 degrees Celsius. Temperatures would keep falling afterward, eventually dropping below -70 degrees Celsius. Urban power grids collapsed, water supply pipelines froze and ruptured, and communications were severed. The once prosperous world turned into one massive natural ice tomb. Lin Xia could have survived comfortably through that disaster. She held core shares in the Lin Group, with personal assets exceeding 10 billion. She had even stockpiled a shipment of supplies set to be shipped overseas only days before the catastrophe. Yet she had trusted 2 people wrongly: her fiancé Li Jia and her seemingly innocent younger half-sister Lin Wan. Shortly after the apocalypse erupted, Li Jia claimed he would protect her and took control of all her supplies and security personnel. Lin Wan, hiding behind her identity as Lin Xia's half-sister, tearfully brought her entire extended family to seek shelter in Lin Xia's safe house. Out of lingering affection, Lin Xia welcomed them without reservation. And what did she receive in return? Endless demands and escalating exploitation. Once half the supplies were consumed, Li Jia and Lin Wan finally revealed their true colors. Working together, they drove her out of the safe house that she herself had funded and built. In blizzards with temperatures plunging to -60 or 70 degrees, Lin Xia wandered like a stray dog among the survivors. She ate ice-crusted grass roots, gnawed frozen bark, and once fought feral dogs over a half-rotted expired can. She endured the harshest 3 years. Just when she thought she had grown tough enough to scrape by in this broken world, Li Jia and Lin Wan appeared again. Dressed warmly, accompanied by armed bodyguards, they offered hollow apologies. They claimed to have discovered an underground warehouse abundant with supplies that required her fingerprint access to open. If she helped unlock the warehouse, they said, all grievances would be set aside, and she would be allowed back into the safe house. Starved to the brink of delirium, Lin Xia foolishly believed their lies. What happened next? They lured her to the edge of a frozen lake. A vicious smile spread across Lin Wan's formerly pure-looking face. She pointed toward a bottomless ice hole and coldly revealed the truth. There was no underground warehouse at all. They simply feared Lin Xia's continued existence. They worried she might one day attract other survivor factions and expose the location of their safe house. Li Jia stood nearby, his gaze icy, devoid of the slightest sympathy. He spoke only one sentence: "Your life is a threat." Then, without hesitation, the two shoved her into the frigid ice hole. Murky, freezing lake water flooded her mouth and nostrils. No matter how she struggled or screamed, she sank slowly toward the lake bed. That despair and cold were etched permanently into her soul. Huff, Lin Xia snapped out of her recollections with a sharp gasp. She sat on the warm, comfortable silk bed in Jinjiang Mansion, yet the chill in her eyes ran deeper than the ice lake that had claimed her in her past life. 3 years. 3 years crawling through hell. Now she was back at the starting line. Right now, Leisha was still the devoted boyfriend who had only recently gained a foothold in the business world thanks to resources from the Lin Group. Lin Wan remained the obedient younger sister who clung to her side, calling her sister in a sweet, gentle voice. A mocking smirk tugged at Lin Xia's lips. Perfect. 30 days was more than enough time to accomplish a great many things. More than enough time to prepare a fitting reckoning for this deceitful pair. Just then, the mahogany double doors of the bedroom creaked open. Soft footsteps echoed inward, carrying the aroma of seafood congee. Xia, you're awake? A gentle, honeyed male voice sounded from the doorway. Lin Xia lifted her gaze. Leisha stepped inside, holding an elegant tray, dressed in well-tailored loungewear. His hair was neatly combed, and he wore a warm, inviting smile. On the tray sat a steaming bowl of abalone seafood congee, paired with several delicate side dishes. If she had not endured the betrayal of her previous life, Lin Xia might have been fooled by his thoughtful demeanor. This man wore his deception down to his bones. He walked to the bed and carefully set the tray on the nightstand. You stayed up until 3 this morning working on the corporate merger case. I saw you sleeping soundly and didn't want to wake you. Leisha's tone was laced with apparent concern. He reached out and brushed a strand of loose hair behind Lin Xia's ear. Look how pale you are. Have some hot congee to soothe your stomach. Lin Xia sat motionless on the bed, watching him. Her expression was calm, as if she were observing an inanimate object. Li Xia grew uneasy under her stare. He pulled his hand back and let out an awkward laugh. What's wrong, Xia? Are you feeling unwell? Lin Xia said nothing. Her gaze drifted past Leisha to the tray beside him on the nightstand. Leisha had casually set his phone there. The screen lit up suddenly. From where she sat, Lin Xia could clearly read the notification. The sender was noted with a heart icon and the name Wan. The short message read, Brother Zhe, has sister woken up yet? I've been waiting downstairs for quite some time. Please come down to see me soon. The glow of the screen stood out starkly in the dim light beside the bed. Leisha noticed his phone lighting up. Panic flickered across his eyes, and he instinctively reached for it. Someone from the company must be chasing progress. Let me just check. He never finished his sentence. Lin Xia moved. She did not erupt into angry questioning over the message. She did not weep and accuse him of disloyalty. She did not utter a single extra word. Lin Xia simply pushed aside the silk covers and lifted her right leg sharply. All the resentment built over 3 years, alongside the fierce resolve awakening within her, channeled into her foot. Bang! A dull impact echoed. Lin Xia kicked Leisha solidly in the chest without holding back. Caught completely off guard, Leisha lost his balance and tumbled backward. He cried out, flailing his arms wildly as he tried to grab something to steady himself. Instead, he knocked over the mahogany tray on the nightstand. Crash! The fine ceramic bowl shattered against the solid wood floor. The steaming abalone seafood congee, along with its ingredients, spilled all over Leisha. Scalding broth soaked his loungewear, drawing a shrill scream of pain from him. He collapsed amid broken pottery and sticky congee, clutching his chest, his features twisted in agony. He stared up at Lin Xia in disbelief. Scalding broth dripped down Leisha's cheeks. Ignoring grains of rice stuck to his face, he gasped in pain, his eyes wide with shock. In his mind, Lin Xia had always been a mild, easily manipulated wealthy heiress. Over their 2-year relationship, she rarely even raised her voice. This sudden kick defied all his expectations. Xia, what are you doing? Gritting through the ache in his chest, Leisha pushed himself halfway up from the floor. His eyes shifted, and he quickly adopted a hurt, forgiving expression. Is the pressure from the merger case weighing on you? Or did I upset you when I nearly dropped my phone? He tried to dismiss Lin Xia's strange behavior as unreasonable moodiness typical of a privileged young woman. Leisha pushed himself to his feet and stepped closer to the bed. If something's bothering you, you can shout or hit me. Don't distress yourself. That warm, magnetic voice, paired with his disheveled state, made him look like a wronged yet devoted boyfriend. If Lin Xia had not died a bitter death in her past life, she might have fallen for his false mask once more. Now, however, the sight of him turned her stomach. Every act of affection she had once cherished was nothing but a scheme to seize the Lin family fortune. Lin Xia looked on at his revolting performance, too disgusted to speak. She turned and pressed the intercom beside the bed. Security? This is Lin Xia, resident of the top floor. Send 2 staff up immediately. There is an uninvited person in my suite. A respectful, alert reply came from the other end of the line. Leisha froze completely. An uninvited person? He was the Lin Group's future son-in-law, having lived here for more than half a year. Now he was being treated like a stranger. Xia, stop this nonsense. If security comes up, we'll both lose face. Panic crept into Leisha's voice, edged with frustration. Ignoring his messy appearance, he stretched out his hand to grab Lin Xia's ankle. Lin Xia shot him a cold glance and pulled her foot away. Don't touch me. You disgust me. Those 6 short words cut through Leisha like a blade of ice. His outstretched hand stiffened, and his face alternated between red and pale. Less than 2 minutes later, hurried footsteps sounded outside the door. Jinjiang Mansion maintained efficient security. 2 burly security guards pushed the door open. They stared at the mess covering the floor and Leisha sitting on the ground, unsure how to react. Miss Lin, what, escort him out, Lin Xia said flatly. Delete all his access credentials for Jinjiang Mansion's gate system effective immediately. Leisha's eyes widened in disbelief. He never imagined Lin Xia would carry out her threat. Lin Xia, have you lost your mind? Wanwan is waiting downstairs for us. How am I supposed to face everyone looking like this? Mentioning Lin Wan only deepened the frost in Lin Xia's gaze. Drag him out. Don't let him soil my flooring any further. The 2 guards exchanged a glance and stopped hesitating. They seized Leisha by each arm. Panic overwhelmed Leisha. Beneath his stained loungewear, he wore only casual swim shorts. Let go of me. I'm Lin Xia's fiancé. How dare you lay hands on me? He struggled violently to break free of their grip. Xia, let us talk this through. At least let me change my clothes. Lin Xia watched silently, expression unchanging. The guards cared nothing for his status as her fiancé. They answered only to the building's resident. They tightened their hold and hauled Leisha toward the bedroom door. Leisha waved his arms wildly, trying to catch hold of the doorframe. In his struggle, his arms swept against a tall flower stand beside the entrance. A Qing Dynasty blue and white porcelain vase perched atop it tilted and fell. Smash! The priceless antique shattered into countless shards on the floor. The guards dragged Leisha shouting and protesting down the corridor and into the elevator. Minutes later, commotion erupted in the lobby on the ground floor of Jinjiang Mansion. The 2 security guards dragged Leisha straight out of the grand carved iron entrance gate and set him down roughly on the pavement. The morning sunlight was harsh. Leisha's loungewear had torn during his struggle. With only casual swim shorts covering his lower body, he cut a ridiculous figure. Dried congee and sticky rice grains clung all over his clothes. Jinjiang Mansion was a well-known upscale residential complex in City A. Early in the morning, many residents were jogging or walking pets outside the compound. Everyone paused to stare and whisper about Leisha. Isn't that the Lin family's prospective son-in-law? What happened to him? Thrown out by security first thing in the morning, dressed only in swim shorts. He must have gotten caught in some trouble. He always looks polished and put together in formal wear. Now he looks like a beggar. Every word of the murmurs reached Leisha's ears. His face burned bright crimson, and he longed to vanish into thin air. Covering his face with his hands, he scrambled to hide behind a cluster of bushes outside the gate. Back in the top-floor penthouse, silence returned to the suite. Lin Xia frowned and stepped out of bed. Barefoot, she walked to the doorway and surveyed the broken pottery scattered across the floor. She felt no sorrow over the shattered antique vase. Once the apocalypse arrived, such decorative objects, unable to feed or warm anyone, would not be worth half a moldy loaf of bread. Lin Xia bent down to pick up a large shard blocking the walkway and toss it into the trash can. Yet the edge of the ceramic was far sharper than she expected. A sharp stinging sensation pricked her skin. A thin cut appeared on the pad of her fair index finger. Bright red blood welled up at once. A drop of blood slid from her fingertip and landed precisely on the jade pendant hanging at her chest. This pendant was a memento left to her by her mother before she passed away. Crafted from vivid emerald jade carved with ancient cloud patterns, Lin Xia had worn it constantly since childhood, never taking it off. In her previous life, the vase had shattered at this exact moment as well. But back then, her thoughts were entirely fixed on Leisha, and she had not noticed the blood touching the jade. Instead of sliding off the surface, the blood was absorbed rapidly, as if the stone were a sponge. A strange red glow rippled across the emerald jade. Lin Xia stared in surprise. Before she could process what was happening, the pendant grew faintly warm. The next instant, it transformed into a streak of light and merged directly into her body. A light wave of dizziness washed over her. Lin Xia closed her eyes instinctively. When she opened them again, a vast, mysterious space had materialized within her mind. It was a boundless gray expanse, stretching endlessly in every direction, where time seemed to cease entirely. A surge of elation swept over Lin Xia as she focused her thoughts. It worked. This was the greatest opportunity she had missed in her previous life. It would also be her greatest foundation for surviving comfortably through the extreme cold apocalypse in this new life. Her SSS-grade spatial ability had awakened. Along with the space, clear knowledge of its rules flooded into her consciousness. 3 inviolable rules governed the space in its initial state. First, only non-living objects could be stored. That meant she could not place any living creatures inside, whether humans or animals. The space could not serve as a shelter for people, it existed solely for storage. Second, Lin Xia had to make direct physical contact with an item, or touch an independent container connected to the item, to store it. She could not summon objects from afar with sheer thought. She needed to physically touch whatever she wished to store. For large stockpiles of goods, she could touch the crates, pallets, or shipping containers holding them. Third, and the rule that pleased Lin Xia most, time stood completely still inside the space. It existed in a dimension where all motion halted. Food stored there would never spoil. A steaming hot pot placed inside would retain its exact temperature upon being retrieved. Precision machinery would experience zero wear and tear. Volatile substances such as fuel and liquefied gas would not evaporate at all. This rule was tailor-made for stockpiling supplies ahead of the apocalypse. Lin Xia sat on the silk bed and picked up an expensive lipstick. With a subtle shift of her focus, the lipstick vanished from her palm. She directed her awareness into the gray boundless space in her mind. The lipstick hovered suspended in midair, unmoved. She waited 5 minutes before summoning it back into her hand. The metal casing remained at the exact same temperature, and even the faint fingerprint on its surface was unchanged. Lin Xia walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, picked up a glass of freshly poured hot water, and stored the cup and its contents within the space. 10 minutes later, she brought the glass back out. The sides remained scalding hot, steam curling upward. And the tea leaves floating on the water's surface stayed frozen in their original position. A satisfied smile tugged at Lin Xia's lips. With this time-stopping asset as her trump card, she could move forward with her full set of plans without restraint. Ding dong. The doorbell suddenly cut through the morning quiet. It was followed by urgent, forceful knocking. Jinjiang Mansion's floor plan featured 1 elevator per household. Anyone who could reach the top floor must have access to the private elevator. Lin Xia slipped on a velvet robe and walked slowly to the entrance to check the video intercom. Several familiar faces crowded the screen. At the front stood a young girl with long hair cascading over her shoulders, clad in a white dress. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands twisting nervously together. It was none other than her beloved stepsister, Lin Wan. Behind Lin Wan trailed several core senior shareholders of the Lin Group, alongside Lin Xia's second uncle Lin Zhengwo and third aunt Lin Hui. These people rarely showed their faces for 10 days or half a month at a time, yet today they had all turned up in perfect formation. Lin Xia stared at their scheming faces displayed on the screen, a cold glint flickering across her eyes. She pressed the door unlock button, and the heavy security door slid slowly outwards. The moment a crack opened in the doorway, Lin Wan pushed her way inside without hesitation. "Sister, what's gotten into you?" Lin Wan grabbed Lin Xia's arm at once, tears spilling forth like a broken string of pearls. "What did Suga ever do wrong to make you fly into such a rage? He called me just now, saying you ordered security to throw him out, not even letting him change his clothes. Sister, can't you talk things through calmly instead of letting matters escalate like this?" Lin Wan's voice was soft and delicate, thick with sobs. As she spoke, she cautiously gauged Lin Xia's expression. To anyone unaware of the truth, they might well think she was the one who had been driven out. Lin Xia stared at her blankly and brushed Lin Wan's hand away without hesitation. The scent of rose blended with musk clinging to Lin Wan made her stomach churn. The relatives and shareholders behind her filed into the living room. Second uncle Lin Zhengwo sprawled casually on the sofa, cleared his throat, and assumed the dignified air of an elder. Xia, you're in the wrong here. Xiaozha is such a fine young man, obedient to your every wish. Putting in overtime every single day at the company. You young people can quarrel all you want, But how could you have security hurl him out? Third Aunt Lin Hui set her limited edition handbag aside and quickly chimed in. That's right, Xia. Your temper has grown worse and worse lately. Xiaozhi was shivering from the cold downstairs just now. Word of this gets out, where will the Lin family save face? Elder shareholder Director Zhang coughed, adopting a solemn, earnest tone. Ms. Lin, poorly managed personal conflicts will severely impact the company's stock price. Several major projects are at critical stages right now. This kind of dispute will stir unrest among all staff. Lin Xia stood quietly, watching the group perform their coordinated act within her own home. In her past life, these kin who spouted empty words of morality had turned into the most vicious leeches once the apocalypse arrived. When supplies ran scarce, second uncle and third aunt had led the charge to break into the warehouses and seize rations she had scrimped to save. As for Lin Wan, she had traded the blueprint of Lin Xia's safe haven to other factions in exchange for protection. The extreme cold had not yet descended, yet these people were once again donning masks of hypocrisy to put on a show. Seeing Lin Xia remain silent, Lin Wan assumed she was growing intimidated. She stepped forward, reaching out to tug at the hem of Lin Xia's robe. Sister, I know the burden of managing the company has weighed heavily on you and left you in low spirits. Lin Wan's eyes glistened, her voice carrying perfectly measured grief and grievance. But it's far too taxing for a young woman to run such a large corporation alone. Zhigu only wants to share your burdens. He stays up late night after night poring over financial reports, pleading with contacts on your projects, and has lost clumps of hair from stress. Can you try to understand him and trust him more? Second Uncle Lin Jiangwo hastily opened his briefcase and slapped several thick stacks of documents onto the coffee table. Since Wan has laid everything out, I'll speak plainly today as your uncle. Your father passed away early, leaving behind this massive enterprise. A young girl like you cannot easily hold the reins. Xiaozhi is capable and sensible. Why not hand over daily operational authority of the company to him? Sign this full power of attorney agreement. From then on, Xiaozhi will handle all corporate affairs. You can simply collect dividends and live comfortably as the young mistress. Isn't that ideal? Third Aunt Lin Hui hurried over and laid another document on top. Exactly, and don't forget this. This is the renewal guarantee contract for our construction materials firm. The overseas loan matures next month. You just need to sign this unlimited personal liability guarantee agreement. We're all family. It's less than 100 million, a trivial sum for the Lin Group. Help your aunt weather this crisis, and I will always remember your kindness. Lin Xia's gaze swept across the documents on the table, faint mockery stirring deep within her eyes. A full power of attorney agreement. An unlimited personal liability guarantee contract. These people had calculated every detail to drain her dry. It was on this exact day in her previous life that she had yielded to their relentless pressure and moral manipulation, signing the papers in a moment of weakness. In the 30 days before the apocalypse struck, Lixia had exploited the agreement to siphon massive liquid capital out of the company. Second uncle and third aunt's businesses were already drowning in debt, and all bad debts were transferred onto Lin Xia through the guarantee contract. Lin Xia lowered her gaze and let out a long sigh, hidden from their view. Her shoulders slumped gently, her formerly upright spine curving slightly. A profound weariness and helplessness surfaced on her fair features. She trudged toward the single-seat sofa and sank down heavily. Second uncle, third aunt, Director Zhang. Lin Xia's voice turned hoarse, filled with utter dejection. Did you all travel here in such force just to pressure me into surrendering control of the company? Second uncle Lin Jiangwo stiffened slightly, then recovered his false smile. Xia, how can you speak like that? No one is forcing you to hand over power. We're only looking out for your best interests. Xiaozhi will be part of the family sooner or later. What difference does it make whether the company is managed by him or you? Lin Wan quickly added her support, tears welling up once more. Sister, how can you think so poorly of your elders? Everyone has your welfare at heart. None of us would ever harm you. Lin Xia closed her eyes and massaged her temples, putting on the appearance of someone utterly defeated. Very well. I'm exhausted. I don't wish to keep arguing about all of this. If all of you believe Lixia is more suited to manage the company, we will proceed as you suggest. At those words, the people in the living room exchanged quick glances. Uncontainable elation flashed across second uncle and third aunt's faces, their breathing quickening. The corners of Lin Wan's lips lifted into a cold smile of triumph. Director Zhang heaved a deep sigh of relief. No one noticed Lin Xiao's fingers resting along the edge of her bathrobe pocket. A miniature voice recorder tucked inside blinked blue, quietly capturing every word spoken. Meanwhile, on the edge of the sofa outside everyone's line of sight, her left hand pressed against a hidden tablet. Its screen glowed faintly. Displayed were falsified accounting records for Second Uncle's construction materials firm, fake cash flow documents from the shell companies owned by Third Aunt, and irrefutable evidence that Director Zheng had engaged in related party transactions to embezzle corporate assets. All the files streamed steadily to download through a covert background program. The group thought they held all the cards, ready to carve up the Lin Group's wealth between them. They had no idea that beneath her compliant facade, Lin Xia was tightening the noose around their necks. It was noon by the time the crowd filed cheerfully out of the luxury penthouse. Lin Xia stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching several luxury vehicles drive out of the Jinjiang mansion gates. Second Uncle Lin Jiangwo walked with a spring in his step, already acting as if he occupied the chairman's seat. Lin Wan linked arms intimately with Third Aunt, smiling like a blooming white lotus flower. Lin Xia tore her gaze away, walked over to the bar, and poured herself a glass of warm water. The greater their joy today, the more devastating their fate would be later. She picked up a spare phone she had prepared long ago and dialed a confidential number. The call was answered on the third ring, a deep, guarded male voice coming from the other end. "Who is this?" "Xinchuan Consortium, Director Shin." "This is Lin Xia." Lin Xiao's tone remained calm. There was a 3-second pause on the line. The Xinchuan Consortium was the Lin Group's biggest rival in City A. The two sides had competed fiercely for over a decade. Xinchuan never imagined the current head of the Lin Group would contact him voluntarily. "Ms. Lin, if you're calling regarding the Southern City project, I believe we have nothing to discuss." "I have no interest in that project." Lin Xia let out a quiet laugh. "I hold 45% of the Lin Group's core shares, alongside 3 exclusive new energy patents under my name, plus 2 high-value overseas assets belonging to the Lin Group. I will sell all of these as a package for 10 billion in cash. Are you interested in negotiating?" The breathing on the other end of the line visibly halted. Xinchuan was a shrewd man. Purchasing these assets for 10 billion would be an undeniably lucrative deal. "Ms. Lin, are you joking? The market valuation of these assets far exceeds 10 billion. I have no time for jokes." Lin Xiao's tone turned serious. "There is only one condition. Within 48 hours, I require the full 10 billion cash transferred to my overseas accounts. I will wait for you at Lanting Private Club at 2 o'clock this afternoon." With that, Lin Xia hung up directly. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, tea curled upward in a secluded private booth at Lanting Private Club. Xinchuan arrived promptly with his chief legal team and pushed open the booth door. Watching Lin Xia sit calmly brewing tea at the table, Xinchuan still found the whole situation surreal. "Ms. Lin, my team has completed an initial verification of the asset list you sent over." Xinchuan sat across from her, studying her with undisguised curiosity. "These are indeed high-quality assets, and the package includes controlling rights to the Lin Group. Still, I cannot help but wonder. The Lin Group operates smoothly at present. Why would you suddenly cash out and step away?" Lin Xia poured a cup of tea for Xinchuan, her expression unchanging. "I'm weary. I want to take the money and travel the world." "Is that sufficient reason?" Xinchuan smiled and chose not to press further. In business, only profits mattered. As long as the assets were clean and paperwork legitimate, he cared nothing for her motives. Mobilizing 10 billion cash within 48 hours will pose a challenge even for the Xinchuan Consortium. But I can accept your terms. Xinchuan lifted his teacup. However, I need assurance that these shares carry no hidden disputes. Lin Xia nodded and pushed an encrypted USB drive across the table toward him. That is exactly what I intend to discuss next. Inside this drive are complete records of violations committed by several senior executives and shareholders of the Lin Group. Xinchuan's gaze sharpened, gesturing for his lawyer to take the USB and plug it into a laptop. Dense documents and cash flow records appeared on the screen moments later. Falsified accounts belonging to Lin Jiangwo's construction materials company. Evidence proving Lin Hui used shell corporations to divert Lin Group funds. And detailed chains of proof documenting Director Zhang's related party transactions and profit embezzlement. Every entry was crystal clear and conclusive, enough to send all of them to prison. Xinchuan grew increasingly alarmed as he read, and a hint of wariness entered his gaze as he looked at Lin Xia. "Ms. Lin, you intend to drive your own relatives to ruin. Nothing more than removing pests, Director Shin." when you take over the Lin Group. Surely you would not wish to retain these parasitic leeches. Lin Xia spoke coldly, devoid of any emotion. Consider this material a welcoming gift for you. With this evidence, you can lawfully remove them from the company without incurring any legal liability. A glint flashed in Xinchuan's eyes. The proposal held immense appeal for him. Eliminating internal obstacles within the Lin Group would allow the Xinchuan Consortium to complete its full acquisition without resistance. There is one more critical matter. Lin Xia pulled several agreements out of a document folder and laid them across the table. These are the personal guarantee contracts I previously signed for my second uncle and third aunt's affiliated companies. Per the contractual clauses, I possess the right to terminate all such guarantees unilaterally in the event of major shareholding changes. I need your legal team to work alongside me to lock all debt liabilities firmly onto their own shoulders. Xinchuan's lead lawyer stepped forward to examine the documents carefully. He whispered a few words into Xinchuan's ear, and Xinchuan nodded immediately. Naturally. Ms. Lin has paved such a clear path for me. It would be unwise of me to refuse cooperation. Xinchuan picked up a fountain pen and signed his name on the acquisition letter of intent. A pleasant cooperation, Ms. Lin. The funds will be transferred in installments within 48 hours. Lin Xia stared at the signed contract, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. Pleasant cooperation? 1 month later, global temperatures would plummet to -70 degrees Celsius. Once cities turned into frozen ruins and the worldwide financial system collapsed entirely, the 45% shareholding now in Xinchuan's hands would become worthless paper. The 10 billion resting in bank accounts would amount to nothing more than meaningless strings of digits. The true wealth would be supplies capable of sustaining life in the apocalypse. As of today, this contract was the noose placed around second uncle and third aunt's necks. Over the next 2 days, Lin Xia declined all social engagements. She shut herself inside Jinjiang Mansion, monitoring her computer screen constantly. Notification chimes from her overseas account sounded repeatedly. Ding, 10 million US dollars has been credited to your account. Ding, 30 million euros has been credited to your account. The Xinchuan Consortium's capital mobilization capacity was truly impressive. Huge sums of money streamed continuously into Lin Xiao's control through covert channels. At the same time, Xinchuan moved rapidly. The Xinchuan legal team formally filed asset preservation applications with the courts. Before second uncle and third aunt could even savor the prospect of controlling the Lin Group, court summons and asset freeze notices flooded their offices. Lin Xia sat on the sofa, sipping hot coffee leisurely, scrolling through news alerts on her phone. Major upheaval at Lin Group, multiple core shareholders under investigation for economic crimes. Xinchuan Consortium announces formal acquisition of Lin Group, becoming its largest controlling shareholder. The news photo captured Lin Jiangwo's miserable appearance as he was escorted away by authorities for questioning. Word spread that Lin Wan had fainted from grief multiple times at home. Li Jia had pinned all his hopes on rising through Lin Jiangwo's influence, and now all his plans had crumbled to dust. The most decisive blow came from Lin Xia's early termination of all joint guarantee obligations. All the bad debts accumulated by second uncle and third aunt became personal unlimited liabilities for them alone. Debts amounting to tens of millions would trigger compulsory enforcement against every asset they owned. Sports cars, villas, luxury goods, everything would be seized and auctioned by the banks. Their dream of cashing out and living comfortably before the apocalypse had been completely shattered. Even if they escaped prison, they would be hounded by debt collectors for the rest of their days. When the extreme cold apocalypse descended, they would be left without property or protection, trapped in hopeless suffering. The 48th hour arrived. The final bank deposit alert lit up her screen. Lin Xia stared at the long string of zeros showing her account balance and let out a deep breath. 10 billion. Every cent had safely arrived in full. With this massive capital reserve, alongside the absolute static space capable of freezing time itself, Lin Xia finally held the resources to live out the apocalypse in peace and comfort. All legal provisions within the contract had taken effect. Her relatives, entangled in lawsuits and overwhelming debt, bore full responsibility for all their losses and liabilities. With the 10 billion funds securely settled in her accounts, Lin Xia set down her phone and glanced around the spacious, bright Jinjiang mansion. This luxury penthouse in the city center spanned over 400 square meters. Once, it had been intended as her wedding home with Li Jia. She had personally selected every piece of furniture and decorative painting, pouring huge sums into its furnishing. Now, it only reeked of nauseating hypocrisy. Less than 30 days remained until the extreme cold apocalypse arrived. This apartment would soon lose all value. In a world without running water or electricity, where temperatures dropped to -70 degrees, high-rise residences with poor thermal insulation were nothing more than ornate ice coffins. Lin-Xia rose and wandered through the rooms. She walked toward the millions-worth handcrafted Italian leather sofa in the center of the living room. Her fingertips brushed the leather surface. The enormous sofa vanished out of thin air, settling safely inside the absolute static space within her mind. Next came the coffee table carved from a single slab of imported marble, the priceless antique floor ornament in the corner, and the Persian wool carpet flown in from overseas. Lin-Xia left nothing behind. As she walked onward, the once lavish living room emptied rapidly, leaving only bare walls and cold flooring. She turned and entered the more than 100-square-meter walk-in closet. Floor-to-ceiling display cabinets lined 3 walls, filled with limited-edition designer handbags and haute couture gowns. In the apocalypse, these once-coveted luxury items would not be worth a single frozen sausage. Still, Lin-Xia refused to leave anything usable for the deceitful Lin-Wan. Her fingertips swept across rows of hangers. All clothing and handbags were stored inside her space, including 2 heavy solid wood safes, which she took in their entirety. Adjacent was Lijia's dedicated section. Looking at the wardrobe items she had purchased for him, revulsion flickered across Lin-Xia's face. High-end suits, handmade leather shoes, designer ties, all vanished as she passed by. She pulled open the bottom drawers, filled with Lijia's daily apparel and premium leather belts. Lin-Xia waved her hand, storing the drawers and all their contents into her space. She would rather let these items sit abandoned in the corners of her space than leave even a scrap for that unfaithful man. The kitchen held her most important supplies. The double-door refrigerator still held Australian lobster and A5 Wagyu flown in the previous day. Without unplugging it, Lin-Xia touched the outer casing. The entire refrigerator entered her space, the ingredients inside remaining perfectly fresh. Built-in ovens, tens of thousands yuan automatic coffee machines, complete sets of imported cutlery. Nothing remained wherever Lin-Xia stepped. She even dismantled the solid wood wall cabinets and stored them away. She descended the staircase to the basement and unlocked the temperature-controlled wine cellar with her passcode. It housed hundreds of premium wines she had collected over the past 2 years, Romane Conti, 1982 Lafite, aged Mutai of various vintages. High-concentration alcohol would become a scarce hard currency in the freezing apocalypse. It could provide warmth, serve as fuel, and be used for disinfection when medical supplies ran short. Lin-Xia wasted no time storing all wooden wine racks and their bottles. Within 2 hours, the luxury downtown penthouse had been stripped bare. Beds, sofas, kitchen appliances, everything had disappeared without trace. She did not overlook even toiletries and toilet paper in the bathrooms. Her footsteps echoed loudly across the wooden floors of the empty penthouse. Ugly nail holes dotted the walls where paintings had once hung. To render the apartment completely unlivable, Lin-Xia fetched a hammer and smashed all window latches, removing the thick thermal curtains to store them in her space. Cool early autumn wind swept unchecked into the hollow living room, howling through the empty space. That drafty, hollow shell of a building would be the first surprise she left for Lija and Lin-Wan. When debt collectors hounded them until they had nowhere left to go, this place would become their only shelter in the early days of the apocalypse. After wrapping up matters at Jinjiang Mansion, Lin-Xia drove toward Cloudtop Manor on the western outskirts of City A. Her off-road vehicle wound along the mountain highway for nearly an hour. Built into the mountainside, Cloudtop Manor stood at an elevated position. Not only was it far from the dense population of the city center, it would remain safe even amid torrential rains and floods. The car pulled up before the gates of Villa No. 1, tucked deep within the manor grounds. Lin-Xia unlocked the heavy black iron gate with her key. This sprawling estate covered more than 2,000 square meters. Tall stone walls blocked all outside view completely. It was a property her mother had purchased in secret before passing away, ultimately bequeathed to Lin-Xia alone. It possessed fully independent property rights, and all transfer paperwork had been handled with utmost secrecy. Lija, Lin-Wan, and even relatives such as her second uncle and third aunt knew nothing of its existence. Lin-Xia pushed open the villa's front door and headed straight down the stairs to the basement. The greatest value of Cloudtop No. 1 lay in its underground construction, 2 separate shelter levels, dug 10 meters beneath the surface. The space was vast and its structure exceptionally sturdy. With comprehensive reinforcement and thermal insulation upgrades, it could be transformed into an impenetrable doomsday fortress. Even if the outside world turned into a frozen hell with temperatures plummeting to -70 degrees Celsius, she could sit inside sipping hot tea and watch the snow fall. Yet completing such renovations demanded massive quantities of specialized construction materials, bulletproof glass, thermal insulation layers, independent heating systems, alongside mountains of daily supplies needed to fill the fortress. Large-scale purchasing within the country would inevitably draw attention from authorities and opportunistic onlookers. She had to go overseas. Lin Xia glanced at the calendar on her phone. There were only 26 days remaining until the onset of the deep freeze apocalypse. Time was extremely tight. Every passing second ticked down toward death. She immediately dialed the cross-border brokerage firm she had contacted in advance. 2 days later, at City A International Airport, outside the VIP departure lounge, a Gulfstream G650 private jet stood fueled and waiting quietly on the tarmac. Dressed in a sleek black windbreaker and sunglasses, Lin Xia walked steadily toward the boarding gate. 7 men in tailored suits followed behind her. They formed an international procurement team she had hired at great expense. Seasoned operators in global commercial circles, they spoke multiple languages and commanded legitimate trade channels as well as underground black market networks. Jack, the lead agent, hurried to Lin Xia's side and handed over a thick itinerary. "Boss, flight clearance has been secured. Warehousing hubs and transport fleets for after landing are all arranged." Fervor glinted in Jack's eyes. This young female employer had allocated a budget amounting to tens of billions at once. Lin Xia skimmed the itinerary sheet lightly. "Pass one rule to everyone on the team. Speed. I won't haggle over prices or shipping fees. As long as the goods arrive at my warehouse on schedule, all of your commissions will be doubled." The agents behind her brightened at those words. Outside the cabin windows, the aircraft engines rumbled lowly. Without another word, Lin Xia stepped onto the boarding ramp. On this overseas trip, she intended to use her 100 billion in cash to launch an unprecedented global buying spree. The jet's destination, the United States. The Gulfstream G650 pierced through cloud cover and touched down smoothly at a private tarmac in El City, USA. The stairway lowered slowly. Wearing sunglasses and black combat boots, Lin Xia descended from the aircraft. 5 full-size bulletproof SUVs lined up on the runway, waiting for her arrival. Jack, immaculately suited, personally opened the rear door of the middle vehicle. He was one of the most renowned procurement brokers operating within America's underground networks. If the money was sufficient, he could source nearly anything. The convoy departed the airport, heading straight for the Intercontinental Hotel in central El City. Jack's team had booked the entire floor housing the presidential suite. All original artwork and furnishings had been cleared from the spacious living room. In their place stood several enormous electronic whiteboards and more than 20 high-performance computers. Over a dozen multilingual procurement agents stood at the ready. They regarded Lin Xia with a mix of awe and excitement. This young Eastern client held a staggering sum in her account, enough to purchase half of Wall Street. Lin Xia took off her black windbreaker and tossed it onto the sofa. She strode to the main seat and scanned the room. "No unnecessary formalities, everyone. We are severely pressed for time. Over the coming days, I want you to leverage every channel you possess to clear all available spot inventory." Lin Xia tapped her fingers gently against the table, her tone cool. "I have only 2 procurement criteria. First, disregard price. Genuine goods are all that matter. I accept premium rates without hesitation. Second, sufficiently long shelf lives and sufficient volume. I will only purchase existing stock, no forward orders." A brief silence fell over the suite. Jack swallowed hard and quickly pulled up a categorized spreadsheet on his computer. "Boss, capital channels are established. Where should we begin?" Lin Xia looked toward the largest electronic screen. "Start with the fundamentals required to sustain life. Meat, canned goods, high-calorie food." The agents immediately sprang into action, the rapid clatter of keyboard strokes filling the suite. The largest cold chain supplier in El City has 5,000 tons of genuine Angus prime beef in stock. Slaughterhouses across 3 neighboring states can supply a combined 12,000 tons of chilled pork ribs and pork belly. Lin Xia did not hesitate for a moment. "Purchase all of it. Arrange cold chain trucks for loading immediately." Contact large poultry farms as well. Chicken legs, chicken breast, whole ducks, place orders by the 10,000-ton mark. This was merely the beginning. In the -70-degree apocalypse, fresh meat would certainly be valuable, but processed goods with longer shelf stability were the true hard currency. Fresh meat would be depleted once consumed, while cans with multi-year shelf lives could be traded for human lives in desperate circumstances. Spam luncheon meat cans. Contact the manufacturers and buy up their entire inventory. I want a minimum of 5 million cans. The agent liaising with suppliers jolted, nearly knocking over his coffee mug. He quickly recovered, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Soybean cans, sweet corn cans, deep-sea tuna cans, fruit cans. Tomato and soybean, mushroom meat sauce, braised pork, secure every variety available. Order 1,000 pallets of each to start. If they hold additional stock, take everything. Lin Xia watched the constantly updating figures on the reports, her expression unchanging. Before the apocalypse, money was nothing more than meaningless numbers. Only once converted into supplies could it buy survival and dignity amid the blizzards. Hardtack and military field rations. Tap your specialized networks, acquire every unit available. Dark chocolate with high cocoa content only. These items are high in calories and compact. Secure 500 shipping containers. Coffee beans, instant coffee, white sugar, brown sugar, high sugar confectionery, order all by the ton. Jack wiped sweat from his forehead. Even preparing logistics for a small-scale war would scarcely demand purchasing on such a staggering scale. Still, this was exactly the type of high-value client he favored, promising commissions large enough to quicken his heartbeat. Once food supplies were arranged, Lin Xia issued instructions for the second procurement phase. Daily necessities and medical supplies. Infant formula of all varieties, alongside high-calcium milk powder for middle-aged and elderly people. Buy out all spot inventory from nearby manufacturers. Brand does not matter as long as products meet safety standards. Barreled purified water, bottled mineral water, acquire all supply channels from major supermarket suppliers. After the apocalypse arrived, water sources would be heavily contaminated by extreme cold and toxic black snow. Purifying water would consume massive energy with low efficiency. Ready-to-drink purified water would be critical for maintaining health. No amount would ever be enough. Agents frantically made calls, transferring enormous advance payments into supplier accounts. Procuring medical supplies required greater discretion, forcing Jack to activate his most vital underground black market connections. Lin Xia handed him a list. Vitamin tablets, broad-spectrum antibiotics, fever reducers, potent anti-inflammatory medication. Ibuprofen, amoxicillin, cephalosporins, procure these basic pharmaceuticals in maximum quantities. Frostbite ointment, painkillers, hemostatic gauze, medical alcohol, suturing kits, first aid packs. In the apocalypse, these goods would be hundreds of times more valuable than gold and diamonds. They were treasures capable of snatching people from the grip of death. Circumvent prescription purchase limits. Buy goods in bulk cases. I am willing to pay double the price, provided all stock arrives at the warehouse within 3 days. Next came agricultural supplies. The underground safe zone within CloudOp No. 1 featured a complete ecological growing area. Seeds of cold-resistant crops, potatoes, sweet potatoes, Chinese cabbage, winter wheat, tomatoes. High-concentration compound fertilizer, hydroponic nutrient solution, pest repellents. With these resources, she could grow fresh vegetables amid frozen wastelands. Last came easily overlooked daily consumables, toilet paper, disinfectant wet wipes, sanitary pads, order 1,000 truckloads of each. Soap, laundry detergent, toothpaste, shampoo, moisturizing cream. In addition, cling film, vacuum compression bags, high-capacity alkaline batteries. For an entire day, no one in the presidential suite got any rest. Hundreds of billions in funds were rapidly allocated and spent. Heavy-duty trucks traveled day and night along America's highways. To avoid triggering excessive official suspicion, Lin Xia had devised covert strategies long beforehand. Split all large orders apart. Sign contracts under 100 different shell companies. Make payments in separate installments and disperse delivery locations across multiple regions. Jack nodded immediately and directed his team to break bulk orders into countless smaller trade agreements. To store the massive volume of supplies, Jack rented 10 large temporary transit warehouses on the outskirts of El City, each larger than 3 standard football fields. Truckloads of goods streamed nonstop from all directions toward these suburban warehouses. Night fell. Bright floodlights illuminated the exterior of Transit Warehouse No. 1 on El City's outskirts. Over a dozen heavy trucks had just finished unloading the final shipment of the day. With rumbling engines, the trucks departed the logistics park. Lin Xia drove alone to the warehouse gate. She had told Jack to withdraw all security staff and porters beforehand and even shut down all external surveillance cameras. No personnel are needed here tonight. Arrange the next shipment tomorrow morning. Having received generous compensation, Jack understood the rules well. Without unnecessary questions, he led all his staff away from the park. Absolute silence descended over the area, broken only by the cool autumn wind. Lin Xia walked to the entrance and pushed open the warehouse's massive doors. Vast stacks of shipping containers and cardboard boxes filled the interior, piled into towering mounds. All were high-calorie canned goods, chocolate, and emergency rations purchased earlier that day. The air carried a mixed scent of desiccants and cardboard. One could barely see the far end of the aisles. Lin Xia took a deep breath, suppressing surging excitement. She walked slowly toward the first towering stack of luncheon meat cans. Goods were neatly stacked on massive wooden pallets, wrapped in thick layers of dust-proof plastic sheeting, rising 2 stories high. Factory red labels remained printed on the packaging. Lin Xia stretched out her right hand. Her fingertips lightly brushed against the plastic film. She focused her mind, activating the static dimension in her consciousness. In the blink of an eye, the mountainous pile of supplies vanished as if by magic. Nothing remained but empty concrete flooring, not even a wisp of dust stirred. A satisfied smile tugged at Lin Xia's lips as she walked toward the next pallet. Her palm swept over crates of mineral water and high-energy drinks, past rows of neatly stacked medical kits and thermal equipment. Wherever she passed, tons upon tons of supplies vanished into the gray expanse of her storage space deep within her mind. The enormous transit warehouse steadily emptied as she moved through it. Dawn broke over the outskirts of El City, USA, carrying the faint chill of early autumn. The engines of the Gulfstream G650 roared to life, and the jet climbed skyward. Inside the cabin, Lin Xia leaned back in the spacious first-class seat, holding a glass of warm water. Over the previous 48 hours, she had visited all 10 large suburban transit warehouses. Every piece of spot inventory, including the massive wooden pallets, had been transferred into her static dimension. Jack and his procurement team merely worked for payment. Though stunned to discover the warehouses emptied overnight, substantial hush money persuaded them to pretend they knew nothing. Lin Xia set down her glass and gazed at rolling sea of clouds beyond the window. The 10-day buying spree across America was only the start. Over the next 2 weeks, she would sweep across 5 nations to complete her true global procurement operation. More than a dozen hours later, the aircraft landed smoothly in the capital city of Japan. This nation was home to advanced heavy industry and endured frigid winters. As soon as she stepped off the boarding ramp, biting cold wind rushed toward her. Lin Xia tightened her black windbreaker and boarded a bulletproof off-road vehicle prepared in advance by her agents. In the -70-degree apocalypse, ordinary down jackets would fail to provide protection for even 10 minutes. She needed professional gear built to withstand polar cold. Inside the office of Japan's largest specialized equipment supplier, Lin Xia slammed a lengthy procurement list onto the table. Polar-grade cold-resistant suits, high-tech aerogel thermal underwear, electrically heated goggles, self-heating tactical gloves, and snow boots in all available sizes. Fill 50 shipping containers. The supplier stared at the figures on the list, utterly shocked. Lin Xia gave him no room to negotiate and paid the full large sum up front. Next came an even more vital asset, transportation. Once blizzards arrived, city roads would be buried under several meters of snow, rendering all wheeled vehicles useless. Ordinary civilian cars would crack their radiators in the extreme cold, turning into scrap metal. 1,000 heavy-duty snowmobiles. I require wide-track, all-terrain top-tier models. Enclosed tracked transport vehicles, icebreakers, heavy armored off-road trucks fitted with snowplows, acquire all available stock. Every vehicle must undergo low-temperature modifications, fitted with the highest grade antifreeze and lubricants. Lin Xia spoke rapidly, while agents scribbled notes frantically. Without fuel, these steel machines could not even start their engines. Through major Japanese energy conglomerates, Lin Xia spent an eye-watering amount purchasing tens of thousands of tons of low-freezing special diesel and aviation kerosene. These fuels were stored inside giant explosion-proof tanks and transported in batches to a secluded suburban hangar. Late at night within the hangar, Lin Xia walked alone among rows of heavy vehicles. Her fingers brushed against tracked trucks and massive fuel tanks. Entire fleets and mountains of specialized fuel vanished one after another. Her static dimension seemed like an unfillable abyss, quietly swallowing resources sufficient to sustain a small-scale regional conflict. Her third stop, Australia. Bright, harsh sunlight stretched across endless grasslands. Lin Xia chartered a medium cargo plane to fly directly to Australia's largest privately owned connected ranches in the central outback. The ranch owner had been fretting over annual export quotas until Lin Xia's arrival solved all his troubles. I will buy all chilled Angus beef and lamb chops in your cold storage. Freshly slaughtered meat works too, skip extra freezing procedures. Cut and pack the meat directly for me. Her static dimension possessed perfect preservation properties. Freshly cut meat placed inside would remain steaming hot even after years in storage. Beyond meat, Australian dairy products and grain were also high on Lin Xia's shopping list. Full cream milk powder, natural butter, high-calcium cheese. Buy out all inventory at 3 nearby processing plants. Agents brandished checks and guided fleets of heavy trucks into factory yards. Wheat, oats, rice. Contact major grain merchants. Purchase their entire grain silo reserves. Grain merchants grinned widely as enormous advance payments appeared instantly on their account screens. They even volunteered free transport fleets. Tens of thousands of tons of golden wheat and husked rice poured like water into the giant storage areas Lin Xia had rented. 5 days later, Lin Xia rushed onward to Germany. Famous for precision manufacturing, this country held critical components required to build her doomsday fortress. In the apocalypse, illness often equaled death. Common cold medicine could only offer temporary relief. High-value medical hardware was the true lifeline. Portable fully automatic biochemical analyzers, high-precision shadowless lamps, complete sets of minimally invasive surgical instruments. Oxygen concentrators, defibrillators, multi-parameter vital sign monitors. Working through a large international medical procurement firm, Lin Xia secured precision equipment enough to stock a Grade A tertiary hospital. Water sources remained another survival priority. After toxic black snow descended, surface water worldwide would be contaminated by unknown toxins, making standard water purifiers ineffective. Industrial-grade reverse osmosis water purification systems, models capable of filtering heavy metals and microviruses. Order 1,000 spare reverse osmosis membranes and filter core assemblies. In the apocalypse, all machinery would eventually break down, and without manufacturing capacity, people faced death. In Germany's heavy industrial zones, Lin Xia purchased large quantities of precision CNC machine tools, 3D printing equipment, and welding robots. She also bought matching industrial components, bearings, gears, and special alloy steel shipped container by container to transit hubs. With this equipment, she could build a complete miniature industrial maintenance workshop beneath her safe house. When she departed Germany, autumn had settled over Europe. Lin Xia redirected her flight toward hot, humid Southeast Asia. This region was a paradise for tropical fruits and spices. In extreme cold, severe vitamin deficiency would trigger horrific illnesses, making fresh fruit more precious than meat. Lin Xia chartered more than a dozen large orchards and purchased their full seasonal harvests. Durian, mango, pitaya, mangosteen, jackfruit. No need to peel or ripen them, load them directly into trucks inside their fruit crates. Within her static dimension, these fruits would remain fresh and juicy, exactly as they were when picked. Beyond fruit, tons of spices, dried goods, and rare medicinal herbs were added to her stockpile. Black pepper, star anise, cinnamon, curry powder, purchase all by the ton. Korean ginseng, wild Ganoderma, premium saffron. Offer any price as long as the goods are authentic. Lin Xia also sourced large batches of genetically modified tropical crop seeds from underground agricultural research institutes across Southeast Asia. These 15 days of travel were packed relentlessly, leaving no time to rest. Still, Lin Xia would not slow her pace. Beneath the cover of legitimate international trade, she leveraged dark web channels and gray market brokers extensively. She carried out more secret, more frantic underground acquisitions. Money would become worthless scraps of paper 1 month after the onset of the extreme cold. Gold and silver would take its place as the primary hard currency. Lin Xia anonymously purchased tons of investment gold bars and silver ingots across multiple black markets. These precious metals could be used for trade in the mid to late stages of the apocalypse. They were also essential conductive materials required to craft advanced defensive equipment. Military-grade night vision drones, miniature reconnaissance robots, high-power satellite communication base stations, shield-resistant military walkie-talkies, high-strength riot shields, military tactical shovels, heavy breaching hammers. Pieces of equipment normally only found on Special Forces procurement lists were secretly delivered to hidden drop-off points designated by Lin Xia. She also bought large quantities of outdoor survival blades, high-draw-weight compound bows, and carbon fiber arrows. Firearms and ammunition risked triggering early government blockades, but these melee weapons were equally lethal and easy to conceal at close range. She did not even overlook ordinary hardware store tools. Tens of thousands of sets of screwdrivers, wrenches, electric drills, and cutting machines of all sizes were purchased in bulk. Silent generators of every size, from portable hand-cranked units to heavy diesel models, filled every corner of her storage space. Towering piles of supplies stretched endlessly within the gray, static dimension, forming a mountain forged from food, machinery, medicine, and fuel. Lin Xia stood alone inside an abandoned factory in Southeast Asia. She watched as the last shipment of satellite communication equipment vanished into thin air before her eyes. She pulled out her encrypted mobile phone and checked the balance of her overseas account. The once staggeringly long string of numbers had dwindled down to a remainder of less than 1 million. 100 billion funds in total had been spent rapidly within 15 days, fully converted into massive stockpiles that would grant her the dignity to survive the frozen apocalypse. After 15 days of global bulk purchasing, Lin Xia's overseas accounts were nearly emptied. She had originally planned to head to the airport that evening and board a private jet back to City A. But mere hours before her departure, Jack, her procurement agent, made an urgent phone call. The largest warehouse supermarket chain in Country M had unilaterally seized Lin Xia's final shipment. It was a consignment of premium cold chain goods worth a staggering $20 million, containing tons of premium bluefin tuna, deep-sea langoustines, and top-grade snow wagyu beef. These valuable meats were vital provisions Lin Xia had set aside to improve her quality of life after the apocalypse arrived. The owner of the warehouse supermarket was Smith. He maintained extensive connections in both legitimate and criminal circles in City L of Country M and was notoriously greedy. Lin Xia's conspicuous, price-blind spending spree over the past few days had long drawn his attention. Smith secretly launched an investigation into Lin Xia's background. He discovered the young Eastern woman operated entirely alone, with no local security forces to rely on. In Smith's eyes, Lin Xia was a fat sheep walking straight into the wolf den carrying a fortune. He refused to deliver the goods on schedule and stubbornly declined to refund the full $20 million payment. He fabricated a flimsy excuse, claiming the cargo needed to undergo special customs inspection. Smith then forcibly seized the expensive cold chain ingredients and relocated them to a private hidden warehouse under his own name. Lin Xia hung up the call and sat quietly on the sofa inside the Intercontinental Hotel, waiting. At 8 o'clock that night, the doorbell of the presidential suite rang violently. Before Lin Xia could answer, the door was forced open from the outside using a universal keycard. A group of burly, menacing toughs crowded into the spacious living room. At the front strode Smith, his enormous belly protruding, a thick cigar clamped between his teeth. His facial flesh trembled slightly beneath a smug grin. Marching behind Smith were 8 fierce gang enforcers, lined up neatly. They wore black sleeveless vests, revealing thick, tattoo-covered arms. Every one of them had bulges at their waists, clearly carrying deadly firearms. As soon as they entered, the men spread out with practiced efficiency, blocking all exits of the suite. Some roughly drew all the heavy curtains shut. One man unplugged the landline telephone inside the room. Smith strode casually to the main sofa and sat down heavily. He exhaled a thick cloud of smoke and stared at Lin Xia with unrestrained curiosity. "Good evening, Miss Lin. I hope my unannounced visit hasn't disturbed you." Lin Xia remained standing where she was, her brows slightly furrowed, appearing somewhat bewildered. "Mr. Smith, according to the procurement contract we signed, that cold chain shipment should have departed this afternoon." Smith roared with laughter, as if he had heard something utterly ridiculous. He crushed his cigar into an expensive crystal ashtray on the table. Miss Lin, the waters in Country M run deep. Those so-called written contracts are sometimes not even worth the paper they are printed on. I regret to inform you that your cargo is suspected of serious smuggling violations. It has been seized by my security team and cannot be handed over for the time being. Lin Xia pressed her lips together, her voice turning cold. If delivery cannot take place, please refund the $20 million to my overseas account. At those words, the false smile on Smith's face vanished completely, replaced by unmasked greed and hostility. He said nothing, merely flicked a casual signal to the gang enforcers behind him. A gang leader with dreadlocks and a vicious scar slicing across one cheek stepped forward. He drew a heavy black handgun from his waist and slammed it hard onto the solid wood coffee table before Lin Xia. The dull clang of metal echoed sharply in the quiet suite. The scarred man looked down at Lin Xia, his gaze filled with contempt and blatant threats. Girl, are you truly unable to understand what Mr. Smith is saying, or are you pretending ignorance? On our turf, no fat sheep has ever gotten back money that has already changed hands. The scarred gang leader picked up the pistol, angling the barrel casually toward Lin Xia. He leaned forward slightly, his voice hoarse and arrogant. The money stays. The goods stay. Allowing you to leave safely is already the greatest mercy we can offer. The moment he finished speaking, the other gang enforcers let out loud, mocking laughter in unison. They watched Lin Xia openly, as if staring at livestock awaiting slaughter. In their opinion, this vulnerable foreign woman had been thoroughly terrified by the scene unfolding before her. This was the underground world of City L. They possessed countless ways to make an unconnected foreign tourist vanish without a trace. Lin Xia did appear frightened. Her shoulders began to tremble uncontrollably, and her already pale complexion turned ashen white. She subconsciously stepped back 2 paces until her back met the cold wall. Her beautiful eyes held a well-crafted display of terror and helplessness. This is blatant robbery. Lin Xia's voice shook noticeably, as if she struggled to draw breath. I will call the police. I will contact the embassy to seek protection. Smith laughed once more, his laughter reverberating through the empty living room. Call the police? Go ahead and try, Miss Lin. I guarantee you, the City L police will not arrive here for several hours at the earliest. And that span of time will be more than enough for us to cut you to pieces and flush you down the sewers out into the Atlantic Ocean. As he spoke, Smith pulled a pre-prepared document out of his briefcase and tossed it onto the coffee table alongside a fountain pen. The paper slid smoothly across the surface and came to rest right in front of Lin Xia. Sign this, and you can head to the airport safely and board your private jet home. Lin Xia lowered her gaze and scanned the document. It was a formally drafted voluntary asset waiver statement. The text stated clearly that Lin Xia voluntarily relinquished ownership of the cold chain shipment due to unforeseen personal circumstances. She also formally pledged never to pursue any breach of contract or liability claims against Mr. Smith. It was clearly a liability waiver drafted by professional lawyers. What happens if I refuse to sign? Lin Xia bit her lower lip hard, staring stubbornly at Smith on the sofa. The scarred man let out a cold snort and pulled back the pistol slide. The crisp mechanical sound echoed clearly throughout the room. The black muzzle was now pointed directly at Lin Xia's forehead, less than half a meter away. If you refuse to sign, you will be stuffed into a suitcase tonight and dumped in the suburban landfill. The scarred man's finger rested on the trigger, and a bloodthirsty glint flashed in his eyes. Lin Xia's body shuddered violently, as if all strength had drained away. She appeared to break down completely. The last trace of stubbornness fading from her eyes, swallowed by despair. She slowly walked toward the coffee table. Her right hand shook violently as she picked up the fountain pen. Beneath the triumphant stares of Smith and the gang members, Lin Xia scrawled her signature awkwardly on the document's signature block. Her handwriting looked almost comical because of the trembling motion. Smith leaned forward with satisfaction, picked up the signed statement, and tapped the paper lightly with his fingers. You should have complied sooner. Miss Lin is a sensible person who understands the value of avoiding disaster by accepting losses. I wish you a pleasant journey back home. And take a piece of advice. It would be best for you never to set foot in Country M again for the rest of your life. Smith carefully tucked the document into his briefcase, rose to his feet thoroughly pleased, and waved his men away. The gang marched out of the presidential suite with swaggering confidence. The heavy door slammed shut behind them. Silence returned to the suite. The instant the door closed, every trace of fear, fragility, and despair on Lin Xia's face receded like a tide. She straightened her back, her pale features settling back into her usual cold calm. A bone-chilling, mocking smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. She had not actually trembled while signing. She had deliberately lowered her guard and moved close enough to observe every detail of the men. On the scarred gang leader's right wrist, where he gripped the gun, stood a highly noticeable tattoo of a black snake dripping blood. Several other enforcers bore the identical small marking on the nape of their necks. Lin Xia had seen this exact tattoo pattern in the underground faction profiles Jack had supplied to her. She had fully confirmed which criminal organization the gang in City L belonged to. She had also traced the clues to pinpoint their gang headquarters deep in the suburbs, as well as the location of the secret warehouse holding her $20 million cold chain goods. Night fell deep, shrouding City L in darkness. No lights burned inside the presidential suite of the Intercontinental Hotel. Lin Xia stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the endless stream of vehicle headlights far below, a cold smile playing on her lips. She pulled out her phone, removed the SIM card cleanly, cutting off all signal sources. Then she retrieved a set of black tight-fitting night tactical gear from her spatial storage and changed into it. Silent tactical boots covered her feet, and goggles equipped with night vision rested over her eyes. Smith thought forcing her to sign the waiver allowed him to seize the shipment without consequence. He had no idea he had provoked a demon who had crawled out of the hell of the apocalypse. Tonight, Lin Xia would not only reclaim what belonged to her, she would make him lose everything he owned. 2 o'clock in the early morning. On the western outskirts of City L sat Smith's largest concealed storage complex. High-voltage fencing lined the perimeter, and high-definition infrared cameras were mounted at all 4 corners. Shrouded by night, Lin Xia moved like a nimble black cat, lurking in the shadows outside the enclosure wall. The rules governing her spatial storage were rigid. She could not retrieve items remotely or through solid barriers. She had to infiltrate the facility personally and physically touch every target item. This limitation did not trouble Lin Xia. Instead, it made her blood stir, awakening a long-forgotten thrill. She carefully tracked the patrol routes of the armed security guards and identified blind spots where the infrared cameras rotated away. She pushed off hard with her legs and flipped lightly over the 3-meter-high wall. Her landing made no sound. Only the soft rustle of wind sweeping through the grass. Lin Xia evaded 2 overlapping patrol teams of armed sentries and crept up to the rear entrance of Warehouse 3. Ordinary mechanical locks posed no obstacle to her. She pulled a hydraulic cutter from her storage space, snipped through the lock cylinder with ease, and slipped inside the warehouse. The warehouse was vast, the air thick with the scent of refrigerant. Through the faint green glow of her night vision goggles, Lin Xia spotted the shipment seized from her earlier. Hundreds of wooden pallets stood neatly arranged, stacked with premium seafood and top-grade snow wagyu in polished packaging. Lin Xia stepped forward to the first row of racks. She pulled off one glove and pressed her pale fingertips against the outermost packaging crate. Her consciousness shifted. Mountains of goods vanished into thin air in the darkness, pallets and all. Transported into the gray static dimension within her mind, Lin Xia walked steadily along the aisles. Her fingertips brushed rows upon rows of towering racks as if playing a piano. Wherever she touched, tons of premium ingredients disappeared without a trace. The only sound remaining in the empty warehouse was the low hum of the defroster units. In less than 10 minutes, Warehouse 3, once crammed full, did not retain so much as a scrap of wrapping paper. Having recovered her own goods, Lin Xia had no intention of stopping there. According to the materials Jack provided, Smith's true private treasure vault lay hidden in the deepest section of this storage complex. She crossed the connecting corridor and arrived at a heavy steel airtight door fitted with complex dual security, iris recognition, and a password lock. Forcing an explosion would alert the guards outside, but Lin Xia had no need for conventional methods. She placed her palm flat against the heavy steel doorframe. The several-ton blast-proof door was absorbed directly into her storage space, leaving a large gaping opening. Lin Xia stepped calmly into Smith's private cold storage vault. The temperature inside plummeted. Yet the collection stored here would make anyone burn with envy. To the left stood rows of temperature-controlled wine cabinets filled with rare vintage wines rarely seen on the open market, each bottle priceless. To the right, climate-controlled lockers housed crates of limited-edition Cuban cigars. For a well-connected businessman like Smith, these goods functioned as high-value hard currency used to broker favors across official and criminal networks. At the far end hung large whole Iberian hams and wild sturgeon caviar. Lin Xia's expression remained completely impassive as she moved forward like an unfeeling harvester. She strode onward, reaching out with both hands. The wine cabinets vanished. The cigar lockers vanished. The premium hams hanging from overhead metal hooks disappeared entirely. Smith's wealth accumulated over decades vanished visibly before her eyes. Finally, Lin Xia's gaze settled on the deepest part of the cold vault. An oversized heavy safe, comparable in size to a double-door refrigerator, was embedded into the load-bearing wall. Its exterior constructed from high-strength drill-resistant alloy steel. Lin Xia walked up to the safe and tapped its rigid outer shell. She could not absorb the entire safe fixed into the wall, but she could slip her fingers through the gaps around the dial to make contact with the internal storage compartments. As long as she touched connected components, her spatial ability could take effect. Lin Xia closed her eyes and sensed the internal structure of the safe. The next instant, dozens of gold bars, stacks of bearer bonds, and thick wads of foreign currency stored inside the safe's inner compartments were precisely extracted and transported into the gray dimension in her mind. Only after confirming not even a single screw remained inside the cold vault did Lin Xia clap her hands in satisfaction. She retraced her path and slipped silently back over the outer wall. The complex's alarm systems continued to operate undisturbed. The security guards chatted and smoked by the main gate, completely unaware their employer's treasure vault had been stripped bare. The following morning, sunlight shone bright. Smith sat in the back of his custom luxury sedan, his mood buoyant. The previous night, he had effortlessly seized a high-value shipment worth $20 million. That Eastern woman had been thoroughly intimidated and would board her flight home early that morning. Smith lit a fresh cigar and imagined his quarterly financial reports. The vehicle convoy smoothly passed through the gates of the Western Suburban Storage Complex. The security supervisor hurried forward deferentially to open the car door. "Boss, everything was quiet overnight. Not a single outsider breached the premises." Smith patted the supervisor's shoulder approvingly. "Well done. Send over a few porters to come inspect our new stock in Warehouse 3 with me." He waddled forward with arrogant, wide strides toward Warehouse 3. The supervisor hurried ahead with the key and swung the heavy doors open. Smith drew a deep breath, ready to behold the warehouse crammed full of premium ingredients. The doors slid slowly open. The stacked wooden pallets he expected were gone. All the labeled cold chain packaging crates had vanished. The vast warehouse echoed emptily. Not even a splinter of wood remained on the smooth concrete floor. The smile froze abruptly on Smith's face. His cigar fell from his mouth onto the ground, scattering sparks. He rubbed his eyes in disbelief and stormed into the warehouse. The empty racks seemed to mock his foolishness. "Where are the goods? Where is my cargo?" Smith roared like a maddened beast and grabbed the supervisor roughly by the collar. The supervisor turned deathly pale, stammering, unable to form a coherent sentence. Suddenly, a dreadful thought occurred to Smith. He shoved the supervisor aside and sprinted toward his private cold vault at the rear. It held all his personal collections and emergency liquid reserves. When Smith reached the cold vault entrance, the sight drove him over the edge. The several-ton steel airtight door had disappeared entirely. Inside the vault, all the climate-controlled wine and cigar cabinets, as well as the hanging premium hams, were gone. The bare walls stood empty. The supposedly explosion-proof heavy safe was nothing more than an empty metal shell. Neon signs flickered wildly across the night sky in the southern district of City L. Hanging high above the street was the sign for the Black Mamba nightclub, radiating intoxicating light. This place served as the headquarters of City L's most powerful gang and the base of operations for Scarface. A few hours earlier, they had extorted a huge sum of money at the Intercontinental Hotel. Inside a luxurious private lounge on the nightclub's top floor, celebrations were in full swing. Deafening heavy metal music thundered through the walls. Champagne sprayed everywhere as gang members raised their glasses and cheered loudly. 30 meters beneath their feet, however, lay absolute silence. Lin Xia slipped silently down a hidden ventilation shaft in the nightclub's back alley and descended underground. Her movements were light and agile, like a ghost merging into the darkness. After 15 minutes crawling through the narrow ductwork, she reached the end of an underground passage. A rusted louvered vent remained here, a leftover maintenance opening from the original construction. Lin Xia pulled out bolt cutters and snipped the securing screws with effortless ease. She removed the vent cover and leaped lightly into the vast space below. Her military tactical boots touched the smooth epoxy resin floor without making a sound. The air reeked strongly of gun oil and the cold metallic tang of weaponry. Lin Xia activated the night vision mode on her goggles. The enormous underground armory stretched out fully before her eyes. The main entrance consisted of a bank-grade blast door half a meter thick, guarded heavily from the outside. None of the sentries could imagine anyone squeezing through the abandoned passage, too cramped even for a dog to traverse. Lin Xia scanned her surroundings, a flicker of satisfaction crossing her eyes. The gang possessed considerable resources. The stockpile of weaponry here was enough to outfit a small regular military unit. Wasting no time, she strode toward the outermost weapons bay. Dozens of dark green military crates stood neatly stacked there. Lin Xia walked up to the first crate and pried open its metal latch. 10 brand new M4A1 assault rifles rested inside, their barrels gleaming with cool-blued steel. Lin Xia stretched out her right hand, fingertips brushing the rough edge of the crate. As she focused her thoughts, the static dimension inside her mind opened its invisible maw. Mountainous stacks of military crates, along with the assault rifles inside, vanished in the blink of an eye. Lin Xia kept walking down the wide corridor. Her palm seemed imbued with magic as it swept over row upon row of heavy metal shelving. Everything in her path disappeared without a sound. Remington shotguns, Uzi submachine guns, Glock pistols. Lin Xia mentally inventoried the arms as she moved forward. Hundreds of long guns and sidearms of all types, together with their mounting racks, were drawn entirely into her space. Next came the ammunition depot. Hundreds upon hundreds of heavy metal ammo crates were piled here. Bright brass 5.56mm and 7.62mm cartridges were sorted neatly by caliber. Lin Xia gathered all of it with both hands, sweeping away enough ammunition to sustain an urban battle. Further ahead lay the tactical gear and special weapons section. Heavy body armor, Kevlar tactical helmets, military night vision goggles, high-intensity flashlights. All this protective equipment, which would drastically boost survival odds in the end times, went straight into her storage. Several special safes, marked with hazard symbols, sat in the corner. Lin Xia stored the entire containers without opening them. Inside were high-explosive grenades, smoke grenades, flashbangs, along with large quantities of C4 plastic explosive and electronic detonators. Beyond conventional firearms, the gang had even acquired several military-grade reconnaissance drones. These small aircraft equipped with infrared thermal imaging and weapon mounting brackets would serve as invaluable eyes amid the endless blizzards to come. Lin Xia took them all, packing away spare batteries and control terminals as well. In merely 20 minutes, every firearm and round of ammunition within the underground armory had been cleared out. She did not overlook the empty metal shelving either. In the end times, this high-strength steel could be used to reinforce fortifications around a safe house. Once the racks vanished, the underground space looked eerily empty. Only 2 separate parking bays remained at the far end of the armory. Parked there were 2 massive heavy armored anti-riot vehicles, towering like steel behemoths. Matte black paint covered their hulls, reinforced bulletproof glass lined the windows. And thick alloy ramming bars jutted from the front bumpers. Mount points for armaments were reserved on the roof. And the massive blast-resistant tires stood nearly half the height of an adult. These 2 combat vehicles were the most valuable treasures housed within the armory. To prevent unauthorized removal, heavy wheel locks anchored all 4 tires of each armored vehicle firmly to the ground. Lin Xia's static dimension followed a strict rule. She could not absorb objects held fast by powerful external restraints. Attempting storage while the locks remained attached might end in failure due to the tension pulling against the vehicle. Calm and composed, Lin Xia walked over to the first armored vehicle. She pulled a universal lockpick set from her tactical pouch. The gang's door locks lacked advanced encryption. In less than 10 seconds, the door clicked open. Lin Xia pulled the door wide and slipped into the spacious driver's cabin. She deftly pried open the trim panel beneath the steering wheel and exposed 2 ignition wires. When the copper strands touched, a spark of blue electricity flared. Rumble, the heavy-duty diesel engine roared like a wild beast. Powerful torque surging through the chassis. Lin Xia shifted into reverse and pressed hard on the accelerator. With a shrill screech of tearing metal, the armored vehicle ripped free of the wheel locks and rolled backward half a meter. Now completely detached from its ground restraints, Lin Xia pushed half of her body out the doorway, one foot resting on the step, and slapped her palm against the steering wheel. She activated her dimensional power once more. The enormous steel war machine flickered, then vanished instantly, settling safely in a corner of her storage space. Lin Xia repeated the process, unshackling and storing the second armored anti-riot vehicle as well. With that, the underground weapons vault hailed as the safest location in City L had been stripped bare. Not even a single screw left behind. Only scattered tire marks and broken wheel-lock wreckage marred the smooth concrete floor. Lin Xia stood in the empty hall and clapped her hands in satisfaction. Before leaving, she pulled a round yellow smiley face sticker from her pocket. Peeling off the backing, she pressed it neatly onto the load-bearing wall where the armored vehicles had once stood. She then pulled out a permanent marker and scrawled 3 English words beneath the grinning face in bold strokes, "Made in China." Having finished this, Lin Xia wasted no more time. She jumped upward, grabbed the edge of the ventilation opening overhead, and hauled herself back into the narrow passage. Minutes later, her figure vanished entirely into the night of City L. It was 4 o'clock in the early morning before Black Snake, the gang leader, made his way back, intending to turn in for rest. Passing through the corridor, he suddenly felt like checking on his 2 newly modified armored vehicles in the basement. Dismissing his companions temporarily, he headed toward the underground level with several trusted lieutenants via a private concealed elevator. The sentries outside the blast door stood rigid and saluted respectfully as he arrived. Black Snake nodded with satisfaction, entered a 10-digit access code, and completed iris verification. The massive steel door slid slowly outward. Black Snake burped from the alcohol and stumbled forward. The next second, he froze completely. The haze of drunkenness faded within seconds, replaced by bone-chilling dread. The space stretched empty and vast before him. No stacked weapon crates, no rows of shelving, no ammunition, no armored vehicles. It looked as clean as an underground parking garage, newly completed and yet to be occupied. His lieutenants following behind him stared in stunned disbelief. Some rubbed their eyes frantically, one even slapped his own cheek. Convinced he was trapped in a nightmare. Black Snake's voice shook violently. His legs buckled, and he dropped to his knees on the frigid concrete. The outer guards had reported no disturbance, and the blast door remained intact. Hundreds of tons of weaponry and 2 heavy armored vehicles had simply evaporated into thin air. Black Snake lifted his head numbly, his gaze sweeping across the bare walls. Eventually, he spotted the yellow smiley sticker affixed to the far load-bearing wall. Staring at the vacant warehouse, Black Snake began to doubt the nature of reality for the very first time. The next morning, sunlight filtered through thin mist. On the private tarmac of City L International Airport in Nation M, the engines of a Gulfstream G650 were already running. Dressed in casual, comfortable clothes and sunglasses, Lin Xia climbed the air stair and boarded the jet. The aircraft accelerated steadily, lifted off the runway, and soared into the clouds. Leaning back against her seat, Lin Xia glanced at the calendar on her phone. 10 days remained until the arrival of the extreme cold. Carrying massive stockpiles purchased with billions in capital, she began her journey back to City A. The Gulfstream G650 touched down smoothly at City A International Airport. Lin Xia stepped off the private jet, greeted by the muggy breeze typical of late August. Only 10 days separated the world from the onset of the frozen apocalypse. She skipped the trip into the downtown area. An unassuming black off-road vehicle waited outside the airport terminal, driving her straight toward the western suburbs. Cloud-Up Manor clung to the mountainside at high elevation, one of City A's earliest and most exclusive wealthy neighborhoods. Lin Xia's destination was the isolated estate occupying the highest point of the development. Villa Cloud-Up 1, a property her mother had secretly left to her before passing away. The villa occupied more than 2,000 square meters of land, enclosed by tall solid perimeter walls, with property rights processed under special arrangements. Its greatest advantage lay in its 2-level underground shelter, 10 meters deep, plus independent utility rooms built from the start. Years earlier, her mother had planned ahead, pouring vast sums to construct foundations sturdy enough to rival an air raid shelter. Free of unnecessary floor-to-ceiling windows and flashy ornamentation, the entire structure was solid and robust. This place would become Lin Xia's impenetrable stronghold to endure the extreme cold and live out her days in safety. The vehicle pulled into the spacious courtyard, and Lin Xia stepped out. The manor lay quiet. Most wealthy residents preferred their upscale downtown apartments. Lin Xia picked up an unregistered communications device and placed a call via satellite across international borders. Half an hour later, a convoy of heavy engineering trucks rumbled through the gates of Cloud Op 1. Heading the crew was Chen Feng, regional manager of an international security and construction firm, specializing in building high-spec survival bunkers for ultra-wealthy clients around the globe. Miss Lin, the schedule you've requested is extremely tight. Chen Feng frowned as he reviewed the lengthy renovation checklist. Completing work of this scale within 10 days borders on impossible. Lin Xia's expression remained calm as she handed over an electronic contract and proof of funds. Triple wages, full payment in advance. Chen Feng paused, staring at the staggering figures displayed on the document for a long moment. There is only one condition. Lin Xia met his gaze. 3 rotating work shifts, 24 hours a day. Construction must finish precisely on schedule within 10 days. Furthermore, all workers must surrender communication devices upon entry. Meals and lodging will be provided on-site, and everyone signs top-tier non-disclosure agreements. Generous rewards motivated people to take on daunting tasks. After seeing the enormous deposit land in the company account, Chen Feng signed the paperwork without further hesitation. That same afternoon, a professional underground engineering team of over 200 workers arrived and began construction. Renovations to Cloud Op 1 started with the outermost defensive perimeter. The boundary walls were raised and thickened, reinforced internally with high-grade concrete, and conduits pre-installed for high-voltage fencing. The villa's original solid timber main gate was removed entirely, and its frame reinforced with fresh concrete pouring. In its place stood a 2-ton titanium alloy composite gate, filled with heavy blast-resistant material, capable of withstanding repeated strikes from heavy armor-piercing rounds. Every window underwent full replacement. 100mm composite bulletproof glass was carefully fitted within reinforced steel frames. Layers of insulation and metal mesh embedded in the glass could withstand temperatures approaching -70°C, while blocking sustained heavy gunfire at close range. As an extra safeguard against potential swarms of violent marauders in the future, Lin Xia added another layer of protection. Retractable steel armor plating half a meter thick was installed externally over every window and major entryway. When not activated, the heavy plating retracted into concealed wall cavities, invisible to onlookers. In the event of an attack, a single command from the central control panel would lower the barriers within 60 seconds, sealing the villa inside a rigid metal shell. Defenses formed merely the foundation. To survive the freezing apocalypse long-term, energy and life support systems carried far greater importance. Lin Xia set uncompromising standards for water and air. All original municipal water pipelines were permanently disconnected. The engineering crew drilled a deep well far underground, connected to an independent reservoir. An industrial-grade reverse osmosis water purification system paired with ultraviolet sterilization units was installed. Even if surface water became contaminated by toxic black snow, this setup would guarantee Lin Xia an endless supply of purified water, enough even for daily baths. The air filtration system met equally rigorous standards. 3 sets of NVC-grade air purification units were mounted at key junctions, along isolated ventilation ducts. They could effectively block toxic fumes, radioactive dust, and mutated pathogens carried by the black snow. With water and air handled, attention turned to temperature control, the most critical requirement of all. To endure temperatures as low as -70°C, Lin Xia prepared 3 mutually independent energy solutions. The first was a ground source heat pump system buried 100 meters underground. Drawing thermal energy from the constant temperature straight deep within the earth, it would maintain baseline warmth inside the villa. The second solution consisted of 3 large-capacity silent diesel generators housed in the utility room on the second underground level. Paired with massive reserves of specialized diesel stored within Lin Xia's spatial storage, they could run continuously for decades. The third was an expansive solar array covering the villa roof and the sun-facing hillside. Each high-efficiency photovoltaic panel featured built-in automatic de-icing circuitry. Even amid heavy snowfall, heating resistors would activate at the faintest glimmer of light to clear snow and maintain power generation. Electricity produced by the generators and solar panels fed into an underground energy storage hub. Hundreds of high-density solid-state battery banks stood ready to cope with any unexpected power outage. While construction proceeded above ground, large-scale renovations unfolded simultaneously across the two underground shelter levels. Linxia divided the vast subterranean space logically according to long-term survival requirements. Closest to the main living quarters sat a fully equipped underground medical suite. The walls received high-standard sterile treatment. Surgical lamps, an operating table, oxygen concentrators, automated biochemistry analyzers, and comprehensive emergency medical equipment were all fitted out. Adjacent to the medical wing, Linxia reserved a spacious cultivation zone. Walls were painted bright white to maximize light reflection. High-frequency plant grow lights hung overhead, and water culture racks with recirculating nutrient pipelines covered the floor. This area would provide Linxia with a steady supply of fresh leafy greens, strawberries, and cherry tomatoes in the years ahead. Further underground stretched the largest sections, cold storage and climate-controlled warehouses. Though Linxia possessed her static dimension, she still needed a visible location to store supplies for appearances. The cold storage unit featured 6-sided reinforced insulation panels supported by dual compressors. All these zones were centrally managed from a monitoring hub positioned at the heart of the shelter levels. Dozens of miniature infrared cameras were hidden among trees, rock formations, and boundary walls surrounding the estate. Live feeds streamed to 6 massive curved display screens, leaving no blind spots anywhere on the grounds. As the 10-day deadline drew near, construction advanced at a staggering pace. Yet a difficult problem arose for Chenfeng. The ground source heat pump main unit, large silent diesel generators, and bulky water purification modules were simply too massive to transport. Miss Lin, standard mobile cranes cannot move these heavy prefabricated modules down into the underground utility room. Chenfeng held up blueprints, gesturing toward the giant metal containers sitting in the courtyard with a troubled expression. If we dismantle and reassemble them, we risk compromising equipment airtight integrity and losing at least 3 days of construction time. Linxia glanced at the massive wooden crates scattered across the yard, her expression unchanging. Have all workers evacuate the core construction area tonight and shut down every internal surveillance camera. Resume work promptly at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Though confused about how tons of heavy machinery would be relocated, Chenfeng understood the rules and did not ask a single extra question. Late that night, construction noise at Cloud Op 1 fell silent. Linxia walked alone into the courtyard where heavy equipment waited. Focusing her mind, she opened her static dimension once again. Stepping forward, she placed her palm against each large prefabricated container in sequence. The enormous diesel generators, water purification modules, and air filtration units vanished one after another into the darkness. She then descended the wide stairwell to the underground level 2 utility room. Precision-engineered metal mounting bases stood empty, reserved for the machinery. Standing at each designated spot, Linxia extended her palm and released her dimensional power. The cumbersome prefabricated modules materialized and settled smoothly onto their respective foundations. At 8 the next morning, Chenfeng led the construction crew back into the core zone. He froze upon entering the underground utility room. The enormous equipment units that had occupied the courtyard overnight now rested securely on their metal bases. Diesel generators, ground source heat pump main units, large water filtration modules. Every component aligned perfectly with pre-laid pipe interfaces. Chenfeng stared at the machinery weighing multiple tons, his mind filled with endless questions. No trace of crane activity existed, no walls had been breached. It was as if the equipment had sprouted directly from the foundations. Still, he kept Linxia's instructions firmly in mind. He said nothing and directed the workers to begin connecting pipelines. As days passed, renovations to Cloud Op 1 surged forward. Work finished raising and reinforcing the solid perimeter walls. The decorative wrought iron entrance gate was removed entirely, replaced by the imposing titanium alloy composite gate, coated in matte anti-corrosion finish that glinted with cold metallic sheen beneath sunlight. Visible alterations marked the villa's exterior as well. Workers carefully fitted the 100mm composite bulletproof glass into reinforced steel frames. Solar photovoltaic panels were laid row by row across the sun-facing hillside and rooftop. Even with noise reduction measures in place, the constant activity of heavy trucks could not be fully concealed. Cloud Op Manor was one of City A's most secluded elite neighborhoods, where vehicle horns were rarely heard. The steady stream of heavy construction vehicles quickly drew the attention of neighboring residents. Mrs. Wang, residing at Cloudop Villa No. 2, stood on her second-floor balcony with a freshly brewed cup of coffee. Clad in an expensive silk nightgown, she frowned deeply. Her gaze traveled over the green belt separating the two villas, fixed firmly on the courtyard of Cloudop 1. What on earth is the Lin girl thinking? Mrs. Wang sipped her coffee, utterly perplexed. She had taken a gorgeous luxury villa and turned it into something resembling a metal fortress. The newly raised walls blocked almost all view into the property, creating an oppressive sight. What troubled Mrs. Wang most was not all these building renovations. Just moments ago, 3 large trucks marked with cold chain logistics logos had pulled up outside Lin Xiao's courtyard. Uniformed delivery workers streamed continuously into the villa's basement, hauling supplies. Mrs. Wang had sharp eyes. From her vantage point on higher ground, she made out the foreign labels printed on the packaging boxes. Crates of Chilean cherries stamped with air freight tags, freshly harvested Highland Matsutake mushrooms. Boxes of Australian M9 Wagyu beef and premium deep-sea king crab. There were even dedicated temperature-controlled containers that the porters handled with extreme care. Right behind them arrived trucks from another energy company. Several large industrial-grade backup generators, fitted with silent enclosures, were wheeled inside. Workers then carried dozens of heavy explosion-proof fuel storage tanks into the building. As Mrs. Wang watched, her eyes slowly reddened. Jealousy blazed fiercely in her heart. She had heard rumors about recent changes within the Lin family's company. Word was that Lin Xia had cashed out a huge sum of money. Now it was clear. The young woman had converted all that capital into stockpiled supplies. Could some major upheaval be on the way? Mrs. Wang wondered anxiously. She recalled scrolling short video platforms a few days prior and seeing early warnings about extreme weather. Forecasts claimed cold air activity across the northern hemisphere would be highly abnormal, potentially bringing drastic temperature drops. Mrs. Wang's mind raced quickly. Lin Xia, suddenly renovating and fortifying her home, purchasing all this power generation equipment and luxury ingredients. She must have received credible insider information. Mrs. Wang had always firmly believed in such information gaps among the wealthy elite. She turned back into her bedroom and picked up her phone, intending to message her regular suppliers to place her own bulk orders. Yet her fingers froze just as she opened the chat window. Buying basic food supplies would not cost much, but replicating Lin Xiao's full set of equipment and massive premium cold storage stock would require pouring at least tens of millions into the venture. Money meant more to Mrs. Wang than almost anything. Spending such an enormous amount on goods that might never be used felt like carving flesh straight off her body. Why even bother buying anything? She's just throwing money away. Mrs. Wang set down her phone and let out a cold snort. They were neighbors in Cloudop Manor. They crossed paths regularly. If extreme weather or a sudden disaster really struck, Lin Xia held such abundant reserves. Surely she would not turn away those in need. If she swallowed her pride and asked for help, or asked property management to mediate, how could a young girl like Lin Xia withstand pressure from the entire residential compound? At this thought, Mrs. Wang's unease faded, replaced by smug satisfaction over the advantage she anticipated gaining. Still, seeing the bustling construction work at Cloudop No. 1 outside her window, she could not suppress her simmering resentment. Why should this young girl enjoy such comfort and freedom to do whatever she pleased? Mrs. Wang picked up her phone and stepped back onto the terrace. She opened the camera and zoomed the lens all the way in. Click, click. The towering boundary walls of Cloudop No. 1, heavy titanium alloy gates, and bulletproof glass being installed were all captured in her photos. She also snapped several shots of the cold chain trucks unloading. The elegantly packaged premium ingredients stood out glaringly in the frames. Once finished, Mrs. Wang deftly opened WeChat and located the group chat named Cloudop Manor Exclusive Owners Group. Only 30-odd members occupied this group, all affluent homeowners of the estate. Mrs. Wang sent all the photographs she had just taken straight into the chat. Then she began voice typing, her tone brimming with indignation and grievance. Everyone, judge this for yourselves. Is there any regard for rules? That girl from the Lin family has lost her senses and turned Cloudop No. 1 into a total eyesore. Look at those massive iron gates and tall walls. People would mistake our high-end residential community for a prison. The group had been quiet until Mrs. Wang's messages popped up, immediately sparking a heated discussion. Aunt Lu, who lived in a large flat, was the first to respond. She regularly shared wellness articles and charity links in the group, portraying herself as a kind, benevolent person. Goodness, this is truly inappropriate. Everything is sealed off so tightly, there's no warmth between neighbors anymore. Young people can be so self-centered, with no consideration for others. Several other neighbors who loved stirring up trouble quickly chimed in. Exactly. The noise these past few days has ruined my afternoon naps. My wife's nervous condition is flaring up again. What material is that glass? The reflections are blinding, ruining the feng shui of my home. Mrs. Wang watched the group's sentiment swing firmly to her side, a satisfied smirk tugging at her lips. She kept fueling the conflict. You have no idea. 3 truckloads of luxury seafood and Wagyu beef arrived for her today. Plus countless diesel generators. The fumes are awful. Who would be liable if a fire breaks out? Cloudop Manor has clear regulations banning unauthorized changes to building exteriors, not to mention storing large quantities of hazardous materials. Lin Xia shows zero respect for us neighbors or the property management rules. Resentment built higher and higher within the group. Staring at the photos of premium food and reinforced defenses, everyone felt an inexplicable twinge of envy. Why had they not thought of preparing ahead? Why did Lin Xia possess all these resources? Jealousy clouded people's judgment, especially these privileged, wealthy residents. Unwilling to admit their own lack of foresight, they directed all their frustration toward Lin Xia. Aunt Lu sent a sigh emoji. Poor Xiaolin. She must have endured some shock lately. Even so, she cannot disrupt everyone's living environment. Mrs. Wang, you live closest. You must see this matter through. Emboldened by the group's support, Mrs. Wang felt like a champion of justice. She lifted her chin and tapped furiously on her screen. Her typed words carried undisguised threats and arrogance. Rest assured, everyone. I will not let this drop. I'm calling the property manager right now. They must step in today to order her construction halted and force her to remove all this machinery and supplies. If she refuses to restore everything to its original state, we will sign a joint complaint against her. At 9 o'clock in the morning, renovations at Cloudop No. 1 were entering their most critical phase. Qinfeng's construction crew worked efficiently. The framework for the heavy outer titanium alloy gate was mostly secured, and workers carried out final concrete pouring. Several large mixers rumbled simultaneously. The roar echoed through Cloudop Manor, a neighborhood normally so quiet that bird calls carried clearly. Several electric patrol vehicles marked Cloudop property, charged aggressively toward the villa. They blocked the entrance to Cloudop No. 1, cutting off access for material delivery trucks. Property manager Zhao Chang climbed out of the first vehicle, his round belly protruding. Behind him stood more than a dozen security officers in dark blue uniforms. Each held a black rubber riot baton, presenting an openly hostile front. Zhao Chang clutched a stack of documents under one arm, alongside several official sealed notice slips stamped with bright red chops. The argument in the owners' group had escalated overnight. Early that morning, Mrs. Wang from Villa No. 2 personally pressured him to act. Having held his position for 5 years, Zhao Chang excelled at treating people according to their status. The Wang family had deep roots and extensive businesses across City A, a powerful patron he could not afford to alienate. As for Lin Xia, he had made inquiries. Great upheaval had struck the Lin family, and the young woman had sold all her corporate shares just days earlier. In Zhao Chang's eyes, Lin Xia was now a vulnerable young woman with a large sum of cash and no powerful backers. An easy target with money to burn. Stop work. Everyone halt immediately. Standing beyond the temporary barriers, Zhao Chang shouted through a megaphone. On his command, the security guards surged forward aggressively. They roughly yanked out external power cords and shoved workers transporting construction materials. Seeing this, Foreman Qinfeng's expression darkened sharply. He strode forward, standing like a giant shield in front of his crew. What are you doing? We hold all complete permits. Why obstruct legal construction? Zhao Chang sneered, slamming his stack of documents against an unfinished concrete pillar. Complete permits? Don't try to fool me. Who authorized you to build such tall boundary walls? They're nearly as high as prison perimeter barriers. Cloudop Manor is an elite community with strict exterior appearance control rules. What you have here constitutes serious illegal construction, ruining the overall aesthetic of the estate. Qinfeng frowned, ready to argue his case, when soft footsteps sounded from inside the villa. Lin Xia emerged slowly, dressed in loose, comfortable light gray sportswear. She held a steaming mug of warm water in her hand, her expression utterly calm as she walked out unhurriedly. Morning sunlight fell across her fair face, devoid of any visible emotion. She did not spare Zhao Cheng a glance. Her gaze drifted to the unplugged power cord on the ground. Chen Feng. Lin Xia spoke softly, her tone gentle yet unyielding. Tell the men to pause work and take a 10-minute break in the backyard. Chen Feng hesitated briefly, then nodded and complied. Workers set down their tools and retreated in order deep into the courtyard. Seeing Lin Xia halt construction voluntarily, Zhao Cheng assumed she had been intimidated by the property's display of force. He let out a triumphant huff and tore out 2 official seal slips. Slap. Slap. The papers stamped with red official chops were pressed firmly onto either side of the gate pillars. Miss Lin, your actions seriously violate the residential complex management regulations. The property hereby orders you to cease construction at once and restore the property to its original condition within the designated deadline. As Zhao Cheng read out the so-called penalty notice, a dramatic voice drifted over. Now, Manager Zhao. No need for such temper first thing in the morning. Mrs. Wang sauntered over in an expensive custom silk dress. She held a stemmed glass swirling with dark red wine. Trailing behind her were several neighbors who frequently joined her group chat tirades, including Aunt Lu, who had been most vocal online the previous day. Mrs. Wang reached the gate, separated by temporary fencing, and addressed Lin Xia with feigned concern. Xiao Lin, I must say, you have handled this matter poorly. All these imposing metal structures loom darkly, disrupting the feng shui for everyone nearby. No one feels comfortable staring at this wall every day. Lin Xia sipped her warm water slowly, watching Mrs. Wang's performance unfold. Her eyes were cold, as if observing a clumsy street show. Mrs. Wang grew uneasy under her stare and cleared her throat, finally laying out her true demands. Truth be told, none of us insist you tear down all the walls and gates. The weather has turned strange lately, and everyone is growing anxious. I saw all those power generators and multiple truckloads of premium ingredients you brought in. How could a young lady possibly consume so much stock alone? Mrs. Wang lowered her voice, speaking in a patronizing tone. If you are willing to share the generators with neighboring households and bring out the wagyu and seafood for everyone to enjoy together. Once we benefit from your supplies, we will overlook the illegal construction. These seal slips can be forgotten entirely. Aunt Lu behind Mrs. Wang quickly added her support. Precisely, Xiaolin. A good neighbor is better than distant kin. Mutual assistance is what matters most. The other neighbors nodded eagerly, greed shining in their eyes. Peering through the gate at the packaging for the high-end equipment, they had long grown covetous. Not wanting to be left out, Zhao Cheng stepped forward. Mrs. Wang speaks wisely. Harmonious neighbor relations should come first. Nevertheless, Miss Lin, the scale of your illegal construction has created severe adverse impacts. Zhao Cheng rubbed his fingers together, undisguised greed flickering across his face. Per regulations, aside from reaching an understanding with your neighbors, you must pay the property a penalty and coordination fee. Given the scope of your project, this fee is set at 3 million. Zhao Cheng held up 3 rough fingers and waved them before Lin Xia. Once 3 million arrives in our account, I will pretend these walls never existed. Otherwise, construction will not resume today. I will immediately contact urban management to enforce demolition. Chen Feng stood behind Lin Xia, his fists clenched tight. He had never witnessed such blatant extortion from property staff and neighbors. Mrs. Wang twirled her wine glass, carrying the bearing of a victorious party. Zhao Cheng puffed out his belly, waiting expectantly for Lin Xia to submit and pay. In their opinion, a lone young woman facing this pressure had no other choice. After listening to their successive demands, Lin Xia felt no anger. Only icy indifference, as though gazing at people already lost. In the extreme cold of her past life, people stabbed each other over half a moldy biscuit. Only 10 days remained before the frigid disaster arrived. Already, these self-proclaimed wealthy elites revealed such ugly greed. Lin Xia twisted her glass gently between her fingers. She did not erupt into shouting or argue, as they anticipated. She simply tilted her head slightly and fixed her gaze on the property manager standing at the front. What is the full registered name of your property management company? Lin Xia's voice was quiet, yet every word carried clearly to everyone present. Zhao Cheng paused, instinctively straightening the name tag on his chest. Why? Do you intend to file a complaint with headquarters? Let me warn you, I hold ultimate authority here. Our company's full name is Xingyuan Premium Property Management Services Company Limited. Even if you appeal all the way to the top, you will still pay those 3 million. Lin Xia ignored Zhao Cheng's ranting and pulled out her smartphone. She opened a business information app and slid her slender fingers swiftly across the screen. Shengyuan Premium Property Management Services Company Limited. Lin Xia recited the details displayed calmly. Registered capital of 50 million. 80% owned by Far East Construction Group. She lifted her gaze, looking past Zhao Cheng toward Mrs. Wang with her wine glass. Then her eyes returned to her phone screen. Legal representative and actual controller, Zhang Haiming. After confirming the final detail, she locked her phone and slipped it back into her pocket. She displayed no emotional fluctuation throughout the exchange. She stood motionless, merely verifying the company's full name and ownership structure with precision. Lin Xia kept her phone in hand, not dialing any complaint hotline. Against overwhelming capital, verbal disputes were meaningless. She scrolled through her contacts and found the personal assistant of Xin Chuan, the head of Sichuan Consortium. The call connected almost instantly. Track down contact information for Zhang Haiming, chairman of Far East Construction Group. Lin Xiao's tone remained level. Send it to my phone within 1 minute. She hung up and waited quietly. Zhao Cheng watched and sneered more openly. He thought the young girl was merely putting on an empty show. Far East Construction Group was a massive enterprise with billions in assets, and Zhang Haiming a renowned business magnate. How could a young woman whose family fortunes had declined reach the chairman directly? Keep pretending. I want to see how long you can sustain this act. Zhao Cheng stuck out his belly and jeered sarcastically. I guarantee you, even if you summon divine intervention, you will hand over every cent of that 3 million coordination fee. Mrs. Wang covered her mouth and laughed, her eyes filled with disdain. Shaolin, young people ought to know when to back down. Stop making empty threats. As they mocked her relentlessly, Lin Xiao's phone lit up. A string of unfamiliar numbers appeared. Lin Xia dialed without hesitation and activated speakerphone. Who is this? A weary middle-aged male voice sounded from the receiver. Chairman Zhang Haiming? Lin Xia spoke calmly. This is Lin Xia, the one who sold the Lin Group to Xingchuan Consortium for 10 billion in cash. Upon hearing those words, the breathing on the other end of the phone visibly paused. His originally slightly impatient tone shifted instantly, laced with caution and deference. So it's Miss Lin. It's an honor to hear from you. What can I do for you? Lin Xia cut straight to the point without beating around the bush. I know Far East Construction Group is facing a cash chain collapse after its overseas project was suspended. You urgently need a massive infusion of capital to fill the funding gap, or you'll face bankruptcy liquidation next month. Zhang Haiming fell silent, clearly struck right at his most vulnerable spot. Lin Xia glanced at Zhao Cheng, who stood nearby wearing a triumphant grin, and continued speaking into the phone. Shengyuan Property is a wholly controlled subsidiary under Far East Construction Group. I am offering double the market premium for a full acquisition of 100% equity in Shengyuan Property. Once the contract is signed, the funds will be transferred to Far East Construction's corporate account within 1 hour. A rush of heavy breathing came over the line. Double the market premium, paid in full cash with immediate transfer. For Far East Construction, now desperately short of liquidity, this was nothing short of a lifeline. Zhang Haiming did not hesitate for even a second. We have a deal. Miss Lin is remarkably decisive. I'll instruct our legal department to prepare the electronic transfer contract right away. Within an hour, Shengyuan Property will belong to you. Lin Xia ended the call. The whole conversation had lasted less than 3 minutes. Zhao Cheng stood 2 meters away, having overheard every word of the call. Yet he refused to believe a single bit of it. Haha, that's hilarious. You dial some random actor and pretend you've bought our company. Zhao Cheng laughed so hard his flesh jiggled, tears welling up in his eyes. You think this is buying groceries? Double the premium? Who do you even think you are? Mrs. Wang shook her head and sighed alongside him, convinced Lin Xia had completely lost her senses. Before Zhao Cheng's laughter faded, the phone in his pocket vibrated violently. He pulled it out and saw the caller ID, Director of Human Resources, Headquarters. A jolt of unease shot through Zhao Cheng. He quickly forced on a flattering smile and answered. Director Wang, good day. What instructions do you have? The voice on the other end was cold and stern. Zhao Cheng, there's been a major equity change within the company. Far East Construction has divested its holdings. Lin Xia is now the sole controlling owner of Shengyuan Property. Are you currently at Cloud Op number 1? I'm warning you. Apologize to Director Lin at once and fully cooperate with all her arrangements. If Director Lin is in any way dissatisfied, you'll be dismissed immediately. The legal team will also investigate all your improper dealings over the years. The roar traveled clearly through the receiver. Zhao Chang's smile froze completely on his face. It felt as though all the blood in his body had turned icy. Large beads of sweat broke out across his forehead. The property manager, who had been arrogant moments earlier, wobbled on his legs, nearly collapsing to his knees. He slowly turned to face Lin Xia, who remained calm and composed. His expression shifted utterly, filled with undisguised fear and regret. Director Lin. Zhao Chang stammered, his voice trembling violently. I failed to recognize your status just now. I acted foolishly. Please show mercy and do not hold it against someone insignificant like me. Mrs. Wang watched in utter confusion, her brows tightly furrowed. Manager Zhao, what's wrong with you? Send people to seal the gate at once. Why are you apologizing to her? Lin Xia stepped forward, her gaze cold as she looked at Zhao Chang. I have no patience for empty words. Now, tear down every bit of the sealing tape on the gate pillar. Take your men out of my sight and stop obstructing the construction crew. Relieved beyond measure, Zhao Chang scrambled toward the gate. He did not even wait for the security staff and began scraping off the newly applied sealing tape with his own chubby hands. He paid no mind even when his fingernails were chipped in the process. One more thing. Lin Xia's voice rang out again, carrying unshakable authority. I want you to launch an immediate investigation. Mrs. Wang, owner of CloudOp No. 2, illegally demolished the original partition wall to build an open-air swimming pool and private garden through unauthorized expansion. This construction seriously encroaches on the community's public green space. I want you to bring staff to verify the scene right away, issue a rectification notice, and demand she restore the area to its original state. Mrs. Wang jumped as if she'd been stepped on. How dare you? She pointed her finger at Lin Xia and shouted, abandoning all pretense of elegant demeanor. What right do you have to interfere in my household affairs? My new pool has nothing to do with you. Eager to prove his loyalty to the new boss, Zhao Chang stepped firmly in front of Mrs. Wang. Mrs. Wang, watch your tone. Miss Lin holds full controlling shares in Shengyuan property. She is the highest authority governing this entire residential complex. Your unauthorized construction violates community planning regulations, and we will pursue this matter to the end. Mrs. Wang was stunned. She never imagined the young woman she had looked down on moments before had suddenly purchased the entire property management company. The drastic shift in status drove her out of reason. She raised her voice and began throwing a tantrum outside CloudOp No. 1. I don't care what position you hold. If anyone touches my swimming pool, I will fight them. She marched toward the construction workers resting in the backyard and issued a vicious threat. If any of you continue working for her, I will make sure you lose your jobs. Chen Feng and the crew watched her outburst with indifference, treating her as nothing more than a farce. As long as Lin Xia paid generously, they cared nothing for neighborhood disputes. Ignoring Mrs. Wang's futile rage, Lin Xia turned and walked back into the villa. Night fell and construction noise around CloudOp No. 1 gradually died down. After dinner, the workers rested in the temporary underground dormitory. Lin Xia wandered alone into the villa's backyard. Large-scale excavation for underground facilities and ground-source heat pump installation had left piles of heavy construction debris scattered across the yard. This mixture of cement chunks, broken bricks, and soil would normally cost a fortune to haul away by engineering trucks. Now, it had found a perfect destination. Early autumn wind carried a faint chill. Lin Xia pulled on a pair of black gloves and walked toward a mound of rubble over 2 meters tall. She stretched out both hands and pressed them against the rough, cold surface of the debris. The entrance to her static storage space silently unfolded in her mind. Dozens of tons of construction rubble vanished out of sight, safely stored away in the vast space. Lin Xia exited CloudOp No. 1, followed the green belt separating the two villas, and quietly approached the perimeter wall of CloudOp No. 2. Mrs. Wang's illegally expanded open-air swimming pool sat right beside this low decorative wall. The pool was lined with costly imported mosaic tiles, shimmering under moonlight. Lin Xia stood beside the wall and confirmed there were no surveillance cameras pointed at this spot. She stretched her palm toward the pool over the low wall. As she focused her thoughts, rubble from her storage space poured out precisely on target. Heavy earth and sharp fragments crashed down like a waterfall into the pool, sending up huge splashes. Without pausing, Lin Xia headed back to CloudOp No. 1 to transport the next batch of debris. A rule of her storage space required her to make direct contact with items to move them. Though repetitive and tedious, transporting the rubble filled her with a quiet sense of retribution. For 3 full hours, Linxia traveled back and forth through the darkness more than a dozen times. She only stopped once all excess construction waste from the backyard had been cleared, then brushed dust off her hands in satisfaction. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows into the master bedroom of Cloudop No. 2. Exhausted from her tantrum the previous day, Mrs. Wang slept deeply. She stretched and sat up on her soft bed. The thought that Linxia had become the property owner still filled her with simmering resentment. Still, confident in her wealth and influence, she paid no heed to the impending rectification notice. Mrs. Wang threw back the covers, slipped into her silk robe, and stepped onto the terrace. She planned to breathe fresh morning air as she usually did. As was her habit, she glanced down toward her pride and joy, the luxury swimming pool. Her eyes widened abruptly, her gaze nearly bulging from her head. The clear pool water was gone. The swimming pool that had cost millions to build was now crammed full of construction waste. Huge cement blocks, broken bricks, and soil formed an unsightly mound. Dust-laden rubble filled most of the pool and even spilled over onto the surrounding lawn. A sharp pain stabbed Mrs. Wang's chest, and her vision swam. She opened her mouth to scream and curse, yet her throat felt blocked, unable to make a single sound. Rage surged to her head, leaving her temporarily speechless. Evening arrived on the final day of the 10-day deadline. Renovation work on Cloudop No. 1 was completed right on schedule. Qinfeng led the construction crew through one final comprehensive closed-system test. The heavy titanium alloy composite gate opened and closed smoothly without obstruction. All bulletproof glass panels were securely fitted into their frames, having passed air tightness inspections. Qinfeng handed a thick acceptance report to Linxia. "Boss Lin, every project meets specifications. Construction has been successfully completed." Linxia read through the report carefully and nodded in approval. She took out her phone and transferred the remaining project balance, along with substantial bonuses, directly into Qinfeng's bank account. The workers gathered their tools and withdrew from Cloudop No. 1 in orderly fashion. The yard, noisy for 10 whole days, finally fell quiet. Once the last heavy construction truck left Cloudop Manor, Linxia pressed the remote lock for the main gate. The massive titanium alloy gate slowly closed with a low, resonant thud. The first line of defense was officially activated. Linxia wandered alone through the spacious villa. She climbed the staircase straight down to the core storage room and equipment bay on the second underground floor. A wide empty area had been reserved here. Linxia walked to the center of the space, closed her eyes, and connected her consciousness to her static storage space. Massive quantities of supplies and equipment materialized out of thin air, settling steadily onto the level ground. First came the critical spare parts imported from M country. Replacement cutting blades for CNC machine tools, filter cartridges for generator sets, special filter screens for the air purification system. In the coming apocalypse, these items would be priceless, impossible to buy at any price. Next, Linxia walked to the isolated armory deep inside the underground storage room. She extended her palm once more and released the weapon stockpile from her storage space. Crates of matte military automatic rifles were neatly stacked on shelves. Beside them lay piles of tactical helmets, bulletproof vests, riot shields, and military night vision goggles. Safes filled with high-explosive grenades and plastic explosives were carefully placed inside explosion-proof lockers. Cartridges of gleaming ammunition, sorted by caliber, lined an entire wall of metal shelving. 2 compact drones equipped with infrared thermal imaging and mounting fixtures sat prominently on the workbench. With these weapons, the fortress possessed genuine lethal defense capabilities. After securing all supplies, Linxia began her final full systems inspection. She first approached the main control cabinet for the ground source heat pump. Green indicator lights blinked steadily. Pipelines buried 100 meters underground continuously drew geothermal energy. The temperature inside the villa was maintained precisely at 26 degrees Celsius. She then checked the 3 high-power silent diesel generators. The storage tank was full of special diesel fuel. Fuel lines operated smoothly, ready to supply power at any moment. Inside the energy storage hub, hundreds of high-density solid-state battery packs sat fully charged. Even completely cut off from external power, these batteries could sustain the entire safe house for more than half a year. She verified the independent water purification and air filtration systems next. Industrial-grade reverse osmosis water treatment units connected to the deep well with normal water pressure readings. A nuclear, biological, and chemical-grade air purification unit hummed softly, ensuring clean indoor air. Every life support system functioned at peak efficiency. Lin Xia finally stepped to the console in the underground monitoring center. 6 massive curved screens displayed live footage of every corner inside and outside the villa. She took a deep breath and firmly pressed the red lock button on the central control panel. Full armored containment mode, activate. Low mechanical whirring echoed as astonishing changes unfolded across the villa exterior. Half-meter-thick hardened steel armor panels slid down from within the outer walls, covering sun-facing surfaces and all windows. The plates locked together seamlessly, shielding every vulnerable glass surface completely. CloudOp No. 1 had transformed entirely into an impenetrable steel fortress. Watching the steady stream of data on the screens, Lin Xia relaxed the tension that had gripped her for 10 days. She returned to the living room on the ground floor and poured herself a mug of warm milk. Time ticked onward, and night deepened. The clock hands silently crept toward midnight. Late August in City A was normally the hottest time of year. Even the night breeze carried stifling heat. Yet the moment midnight arrived, strange shifts rippled through the clouds overhead. Thick cloud masses rapidly converged, blotting out all starlight and moonlight. Moments later, flakes of black snow drifted down from the sky. Under street lamp glow, they possessed an unsettling dark hue. At first, only scattered specks, resembling black ash. Soon the black snow intensified into a raging blizzard sweeping across the entire city. Alongside the black snow came catastrophic, terrifying cooling. The temperature, once 30 degrees Celsius, dropped below zero in less than half an hour. Frigid cold seeped through building walls and spread unchecked through streets and alleys. Puddles on the road froze instantly into hard black ice. The temperature plunge did not stop, it plummeted even faster. -10 degrees, -15 degrees, -20 degrees. Within 2 hours, outdoor temperatures across City A had fallen to -20 degrees Celsius. This abrupt, brutal cold snap shattered the peace of the city. On the streets, night shift drivers unaware of what was unfolding faced disaster. Car tires lost all traction on icy roads. The sound of chain reaction collisions echoed across every district. Vehicles spun out of control, crashing into guardrails and greenbelts. Car alarms wailed through the night. Chaos erupted in the airport control tower. Runways were coated in black snow and thick ice, forcing all flights to be suspended. Thousands of passengers were stranded in terminals, complaining about the sudden temperature drop. Parked passenger planes quickly accumulated layers of black frost on their wings. Urban infrastructure proved fragile against the extreme cold. Aging water pipelines burst one after another under thermal stress. Spraying water froze into massive icicles before hitting the ground. The power grid endured its severest trial. Transformers sparked under overload, triggering frequent power outages. Lights blinked out across swathes of the city, leaving large areas shrouded in darkness. Lin Xia sat on the living room sofa and turned on the giant wall television. A news anchor on the global news channel reported breaking developments in a panicked tone. Bright red emergency climate alerts scrolled continuously across the screen. According to the latest bulletin from the Global Meteorological Center, unexplained black snowfall has appeared across multiple regions of the Northern Hemisphere. Temperatures are falling at an unprecedented rate. Multiple nations have issued highest-tier cold wave warnings. All citizens are advised to remain indoors, stay warm, and avoid going outside. Footage cut rapidly between chaotic scenes of snow-covered regions across the globe. In some locations, street conflicts had already broken out as people fought to grab warm supplies. Lin Xia calmly switched off the television and lifted her still warm mug of milk. She walked over to the vast floor-to-ceiling window. Though covered by heavy steel armor plates on the outside, Lin Xia had installed several observation slits fitted with bulletproof glass between the panels. Through these openings, she could clearly see the outside world. Black snow poured down like a violent storm. City A was engulfed in oppressive black frost. Faint lights flickered occasionally in the distant urban district before being swallowed by darkness once more. Frigid wind howled against the armor plates like countless wild beasts roaring. Inside CloudOp No. 1, the ground source heat pump operated steadily. The villa remained warm and comfortable, held at a constant 26 degrees Celsius. Lin Xia drained the last of her milk and set the mug on the side table. She watched silently at the outside world shrouded in black snow, her gaze deep and impassive. The extreme cold apocalypse had officially begun. Day 2 after the doomsday descended, early morning. The sky outside remained oppressively dim. Thick leaden clouds hung heavy over City A, completely blotting out all sunlight. The black snow showed no sign of letting up. Instead, the gale whipped the flakes into an ever heavier downpour. After the sharp temperature plummet the previous night, the cold did not stop at -20 degrees Celsius. An unprecedented cold snap had swept across the entire northern hemisphere. Overnight, outdoor temperatures in City A had plummeted to a deadly -50 degrees Celsius. This frigid reading was more than enough to paralyze nearly every modern urban facility. By dawn, the city had shed all its usual bustle and vitality. The brutal toll of the catastrophe was unfolding in the cruelest ways imaginable. Municipal water pipelines exposed to open air were the first to succumb to the extreme cold. Water trapped inside the pipes froze solid in moments, expanding violently as it turned to ice. Bang! Bang! Sharp muffled ruptures echoed across every residential complex without pause. Thick metal water pipes and PVC conduits were torn open, gaping jagged wounds along their lengths. Tap water that was meant to flow into thousands of households froze into massive icicles the instant it sprayed out of the broken pipes. The city's entire water supply system was officially dead. The civil power grid, the backbone of modern civilization, collapsed soon after. Exposed equipment at substations was smothered under layers of black ice and snow, with short-circuit sparks flickering through the darkness. Countless high-voltage power lines snapped under the weight of ice buildup and the force of raging winds. Cooling towers and coal transport chutes at major power plants froze solid one after another. After struggling to function for several hours, the city-wide power grid shut down entirely. Every light across the metropolis winked out simultaneously. For ordinary residents, a total blackout meant all heating equipment ceased working entirely. Standard residential building insulation was never engineered to withstand -50-degree cold. Intense thermal contraction and expansion left ordinary double-pane windows crisscrossed with spiderweb cracks, some panes shattered outright. Letting bitter winds mix with black snow surge straight into living spaces. People wrapped themselves in every quilt they owned, piling all their down jackets from wardrobes atop their bodies. Yet nothing could block the bone-deep chill. Countless citizens jolted awake mid-sleep, huddling trembling in the corners of their beds. Once prosperous City A had transformed into one vast, frozen purgatory. Yunding Villa estate perched on the western highland was not spared from the disaster either. Meticulously manicured green belts were buried beneath deep drifts of snow, and multi-million-dollar luxury villas jutted from the snow cape like cold, lifeless burial mounds. High-end sports cars and sedans cherished by the wealthy had frozen into inert metal husks. Yet amid this pervasive desolation and despair, Villa No. 1 at Yunding stood as a stark exception. At 9 o'clock in the morning, smart lighting in the master bedroom flickered to life gradually. Soft lighting simulating morning sunlight spilled over the spacious European-style king-size bed. Lin Xia roused gently from deep sleep and stretched lazily, her body flooded with a comfortable sense of vitality. The room's thermostat displayed a steady 26 degrees Celsius, utterly unaffected by the -50-degree freeze raging outside the fortified safe house. Lin Xia pushed aside the thin silk quilt and stepped barefoot onto polished solid wood flooring. Whole house underfloor heating sent a warm, soothing sensation up through her soles. Clad in smooth, form-fitting silk loungewear, she walked toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. Peering through bulletproof glass and the observation slit built into the outer armor plating, she quietly stared out at the frozen wasteland beyond. Meow. A deep, resonant meow drifted in from the bedroom doorway. A massive paw pried the door open a moment later, and an enormous Maine Coon cat padded inside with elegant, deliberate steps. This was Robao, Lin Xiao's pet of 3 years. Robo padded over to Lin Xiao's feet and rubbed its large head gently against the leg of her pajamas. Lin Xia knelt down and stroked the thick mane of fur along its neck. She quickly noticed subtle, strange changes taking place within the cat's body. When the black snow first fell the night before, Robo had run out onto the terrace to play before the outer armor panels had fully sealed shut, accidentally coming into contact with a few falling black snowflakes. Lin Xia had rushed to bring it indoors immediately and found no obvious abnormalities after a thorough inspection. But overnight, the cat had visibly grown bulkier. Its already sturdy frame was now far more muscular and robust. When Lin Xia squeezed its front leg lightly, she could feel taut, explosive muscle tissue beneath the fur. Even more striking were its ears. The tufted pointed ears twitched and rotated constantly, granting it extraordinarily sharp hearing. Even through thick bulletproof glass and heavy armor plating, Robao could pick up the faintest sounds carried on the wind. Its pupils narrowed faintly each time distant tree branches snapped or snow slid down rooftops. Lin Xia knew this Maine Coon that had accompanied her through rebirth was already adapting to the harsh post-apocalyptic world. Unknown energy carried within the black snow was triggering beneficial mutations across its physiology. You must be hungry. I've got a special treat for you today. Lin Xia patted Robao's back and led it into the spacious open-concept kitchen. She retrieved a premium A5 Wagyu cat food can, an extremely rare luxury even before the apocalypse, from her personal pocket dimension. The crisp pop of pulling the camp pull tab filled the room with rich meat aroma the instant the seal broke. Robao wagged its bushy tail excitedly and buried its head in its custom food bowl, eating greedily. After seeing to her pet, Lin Xia headed down to the second underground floor where the central control room was located. Her first daily routine without fail. No matter how impenetrable the safe house was, power supplies and life support systems were the true foundation of survival. Standing before 6 massive curved display screens, she scanned the real-time operational metrics at a glance. Deeply buried ground source heat pumps ran smoothly, delivering consistent base heating to the entire villa via geothermal constant temperature strata, an invaluable advantage in this frozen hellscape. 3 high-output silent diesel generators remained on standby, ready to kick into the power grid at a moment's notice. The wall of energy storage batteries registered a full 100% charge with zero power drain. Water purification modules and air filtration units hummed along silently, completely sealing the villa off from the toxic black snow and lethal cold outside the walls. Once she confirmed every system was operating flawlessly, Lin Xia returned to the dining room on the ground floor. The morning's tasks had left her with a noticeable appetite. In this weather cold enough to freeze liquid water solid, nothing beat a steaming hot pot for comfort. Lin Xia pulled an ornate brass hot pot out of her pocket dimension. She had modified its base with an electric heating element to avoid carbon monoxide buildup within the sealed living space, preserving the classic aesthetic of a traditional copper hot pot while remaining safe and convenient indoors. She plugged it in and dropped a thick block of rich beef tallow spicy broth base into the pot. As the temperature climbed, the solid broth melted slowly, crimson chili oil simmering, while the bold fragrance of Sichuan peppercorns and chili peppers filled the entire dining area. The safe house's powerful fresh air ventilation system automatically boosted exhaust output to prevent lingering food odors. Lin Xia arranged an array of ingredients across the dining table, a large plate of crisp omasum chilled over ice, with its signature textured surface. Paper-thin slices of marbled snowflake beef veined like polished marble, fresh tiger prawns, crisp stem vegetables, and assorted handcrafted meatballs. These foods, purchasable with mere money in the pre-apocalyptic era, were now priceless luxuries beyond reach for nearly everyone. The spicy broth came to a rolling boil with an inviting gurgle. Lin Xia sat down at the table and picked up a pair of slender silver chopsticks. She lifted a large slice of omasum and swished it briefly in the boiling red broth with quick up and down wrist motions. 7 quick dips down, 8 lifts up for perfect texture. The flat tripe curled slightly, coated in glossy, fragrant chili oil. Lin Xia dipped it into a side dish of minced garlic and sesame oil before taking a bite. Crunchy, springy texture mixed with layered spicy, savory flavors burst vividly across her taste buds. She then picked up a slice of snowflake beef and lowered it into the broth, watching the flesh gradually change color in the boiling liquid. Outside the windows stretched a frozen human purgatory, howling gales swirling endless black snow through the abandoned city. Inside the climate-controlled 26-degree safe house, Lin Xia relaxed unhurriedly, savoring her spicy hot pot meal. While Lin Xia enjoyed her warm, spicy hot pot within her sheltered haven miles away, Jinjiang Mansion presented a drastically bleak scene merely a dozen kilometers off. Once a premium high-rise Riverview apartment complex in City A's central business district, a status symbol of wealth and social standing, the 28th floor unit had turned colder than the open-air ice field outdoors. Lin Xia had vacated the apartment 10 days prior, leaving no loose ends whatsoever. She had removed all furniture, appliances, clothing, and household provisions. and deliberately damaged the locking mechanisms on every window frame. Even heavy blackout curtains meant to block wind had been torn down along with their curtain rods and hauled away entirely. Now, -50-degree winds swept unobstructed through the hollow, drafty apartment. Frigid currents whipped wildly through the empty living room with the eerie wail of tormented spirits, leaving a slick layer of dark frost across the upscale solid wood flooring. Leisha and Lin Wan huddled together in the farthest corner of the hall, unable to draw any warmth from one another's bodies, no matter how tightly they clung. Linxia had stripped the space bare, leaving not a single warm garment behind. The pair wrapped themselves in tattered cardboard scavenged from trash bins in the building corridor, and wound foul-smelling dirty rags around their necks and wrists in a futile attempt to fend off the piercing cold that gnawed into their bones. Leisha bore no trace of the polished, refined corporate elite he had once been. Frost crusted his formerly neatly combed hair, his handsome features were blue with cold. His lips darkened to an unhealthy purple-black shade. His teeth chattered non-stop in rapid, jarring clicks. Lin Wan's state was even more pitiful. Her face, once her most prized asset with its perpetually soft, delicate look, was covered in red, inflamed frostbite lesions. Mucus froze into clear icicles dangling from her chin before she could wipe it away. Her fingers were swollen red and stiff as carrots, each small movement sending stabbing pain through her knuckles. Worse than the physical cold was the burning, gnawing hunger gnawing at their stomachs. Neither had eaten a single bite since the black snow arrived and temperatures plummeted sharply the night before. Lin Wan had clung to the belief that Leisha would take charge, as he always had, venturing outdoors to scavenge food and warm materials amid the crisis like a reliable partner. Harsh reality delivered a brutal wake-up call. Leisha did not even have the strength to stand upright, only capable of shaking weakly in the corner. "Jiji, I'm so cold, I'm starving." Lin Wan's weak murmur was faint enough to be drowned out by the roaring wind outside the windows. She tried to press deeper into Leisha's embrace to capture whatever minimal body heat he possessed. In better days, Leisha would have pulled her close tightly, soothing her gently with soft words. Now he only felt as if Lin Wan was a cold lump of stone pressed against him, draining the last traces of warmth left in his body. He subconsciously shifted away and shoved her shoulder roughly, his features twisted with irritability. "Bear with it. Don't touch me. I'm freezing and starving too." Leisha's voice came out hoarse and harsh, thick with unmasked resentment. Why wasn't there any official warning for this hellish weather? Lin Wan stung deeply by his cold demeanor, overwhelmed by crushing grief. She bit her frost-numbed lip as tears welled in her eyes, yet the frigid air froze the tears the moment they spilled, stinging her cheek sharply. Desperate to stay alive, the two forced themselves unsteadily to their feet and combed every inch of the empty unit for any scrap of sustenance. Even a sip of water or a stray vegetable leaf would mean survival for them now. But Linxia had left nothing behind, even cleaning out the mesh filters in the kitchen sewer pipes. Every cabinet stood wide open, empty down to the last grain of rice. Just as they prepared to slump back into the corner and surrender to death in despair, Leisha's fingers brushed a hard, solid object tucked into a crack in the damaged baseboard near the entranceway. He froze abruptly, digging the item free with stiff, trembling fingers. It was a small plastic wrapper barely half the size of his palm, holding a single half-piece of chocolate sandwich cookie coated in dust. The printed production date showed the treat had expired nearly half a year prior. Yet to the two trapped in mortal peril, it was far more precious than solid gold. Leisha's bloodshot eyes blazed with frantic greed, his throat bobbing loudly as he swallowed thickly. He tore open the wrapper without wiping off the dust and cobwebs, lifting the stale cookie toward his mouth at once. "What did you find, Zhiji?" Lin Wan watched his movements intently and lunged forward like a frantic stray cat the second she spotted the cookie in his hand, her eyes blazing with desperate greed. "Let me take a bite. I'm dying of hunger, just one bite." She latched onto Leisha's arm tightly, fighting to snatch the cookie away. Leisha recoiled from her frantic rush and lifted his arm high above his head instantly. "Get off. I found this myself." Leisha's face contorted into a savage mask driven by raw survival instinct, his eyes bloodshot and furious. "There's barely enough for me alone, why should I share it with you?" Lin Wan stared at the man beside her in utter disbelief. This was the same person who had sworn endless devotion, claiming he would lay down his life for her without hesitation. "Leisha, have you no conscience at all? Who helped you secure benefits from the Lin family when you needed them? And now you refuse to share a tiny piece of cookie with me? You are hardly a man at all." Lin Wan discarded the gentle, demure persona she had always projected and sank her teeth hard into Lija's wrist in her panic. Lija cried out in sharp pain, his grip loosening. The half-cookie clattered onto the dusty, ice-cold floor strewn with broken glass fragments. Both threw themselves onto the ground like ravenous wild animals, grappling viciously over the crumb of food. Lija leveraged his greater physical strength, slamming a hard fist directly into Lin Wan's face without mercy. "Have you lost your mind? How dare you bite me?" He seized a fistful of her hair and hurled her forcefully against the wall. Blood trickled down Lin Wan's forehead from the impact with the wall corner, freezing solid almost immediately upon contact with the frigid air. She paid no heed to the injury, her mind fixated solely on the life-giving cookie on the floor. She scrambled across the floor on hands and knees and clamped her arms around Lija's calves, biting hard at his fingers as he reached to retrieve the cookie. Lija roared in rage and kicked her violently in the abdomen, sending her flying backward across the room. Seizing this split second of reprieve, Lija stuffed the dust-covered cookie into his mouth and swallowed it whole without chewing. The dry, hard biscuit scraped his throat raw with a metallic tang, yet it tasted sweeter than any delicacy he had ever known. Lin Wan curled up on the floor, clutching her stomach, letting out broken, agonized wails of despair. "Lija, you will pay for this." All their past vows of eternal love and cloying sweet words shattered completely against the harsh reality of starvation and freezing cold. Thin as tissue paper torn to shreds in an instant. The fake affection between them peeled away entirely, laying bare humanity's selfish, cold animal instincts. Consuming the tiny cookie brought Lija no real relief. The small intake of food only aggravated stomach spasms, amplifying his hunger tenfold. Only Lin Wan's faint weeping and the howling wind outside filled the silent apartment hall. Just as the pair resigned themselves to freezing to death within the ice-cold apartment, a spare mobile phone Lin Wan had hidden secretly in the center of the living room vibrated suddenly. On the verge of total cellular network collapse across the city, the device had miraculously picked up a faint signal. The dim glow of the screen cut sharply through the surrounding darkness. Ignoring her physical pains, Lin Wan scrambled across the floor to grab the phone and fumbled shakily to enable speakerphone with her stiff fingers. The caller ID read, "Uncle Lin Jiangwo." This relative had recently had his assets frozen and saddled with massive debts directly because of Lin Xia's prior actions. "Uncle, please help us. We're freezing to death in here," Lin Wan screamed into the phone, her voice thick with desperate pleas for survival. Background noise from Lin Jiangwo's side of the call was filled with chaotic commotion and obvious panic. "One on? Are you stuck there with Lija?" Lin Jiangwo's tone was furious, laced with seething resentment. "Where exactly are you right now? Are you still trapped in that useless Jinjiang mansion unit? Do not stay there waiting to die. That apartment is drafty and impossible to shelter in this weather." Lin Wan and Lija exchanged a startled glance. Setting aside their recent violent falling out, Lija scrambled over to the phone in a rush, clinging to it as his last possible lifeline. "Uncle, we have nowhere left to go." Lin Xia stripped the entire apartment completely clean, leaving nothing usable behind. Lin Jiangwo let out a cold snort over the line and gritted his teeth as he delivered a shocking piece of information steeped in jealousy and calculation. "That vicious girl has fooled every single one of us. I paid underground contacts for information just now. She never left City A at all. She spent huge sums secretly renovating a private residence more than 2 weeks ago." Lin Wan froze mid-breath, the ache in her abdomen fading entirely as she stared blankly at the phone screen. "What residence? What other property could she possibly own?" Lin Jiangwo's voice dripped with bitter envy and malicious plotting. "She inherited a hidden real estate asset left by her late mother, kept hidden from all our family members. It is a standalone private villa built with an underground fallout shelter and full heating infrastructure. The property is Villa Number 1 at the premium Highland section of Yunding Villa Estate." The second day after the apocalypse broke out, early morning. The sky hung heavy and oppressive with gloom outside. Thick leaden clouds pressed relentlessly over City A, completely blotting out sunlight. Black snow showed no sign of abating. Instead, the gale whipped the snowfall into a fierce tempest. After plummeting sharply overnight, temperatures did not level off at -20 degrees Celsius. An unprecedented cold snap swept across the entire northern hemisphere without mercy. In just one night, outdoor temperatures in City A plunged to a deadly -50 degrees Celsius. Such frigid conditions were more than enough to paralyze most modern cities entirely. Dawn stripped the metropolis of all its usual bustle and vitality. The brutal toll wrought by the catastrophe began to reveal itself in full force. Municipal water pipelines exposed to the open air bore the brunt of the extreme cold first. Water trapped inside the pipes froze solid in an instant, expanding violently as it turned to ice. Bang! Bang! Sharp, muffled bursts echoed across residential complexes one after another. Thick metal conduits and PVC piping split open into jagged gashes under the immense internal pressure. Water meant to flow into countless households froze into towering icicles the moment it burst from ruptured pipes. The city's entire water supply system collapsed completely. The power grid, the backbone of modern civilization, failed shortly afterward. Open-air substation equipment was encased under heavy layers of black snow and ice, with stray sparks flickering through the dimness from short circuits. Countless high-voltage power lines snapped under the weight of accumulated ice and the force of raging winds. Cooling towers and coal transport channels at major power plants froze solid in succession. After struggling to sustain operation for hours, the citywide power grid shut down entirely. Every light across the city winked out simultaneously. For ordinary residents, a total power outage meant all heating devices stopped working for good. Standard residential construction standards were never built to withstand 50 degrees below zero. Intense thermal stress spiderwebbed the double-layer insulating glass on windows with countless cracks. Some panes shattered outright, letting bitter winds laced with black snow surge straight into living spaces. People wrapped themselves in every quilt they owned, piling all their down jackets from wardrobes over their bodies for extra warmth. Yet none of these makeshift barriers could block the bone-deep cold seeping into their bones. Innumerable citizens were jolted awake mid-slumber, huddling trembling in the corners of their beds. Once prosperous City A had transformed into a vast, frozen purgatory. Cloud Up Manor, perched on the high ground in the western suburbs, was not spared from the disaster either. Meticulously tended greenbelts were buried beneath thick snowdrifts. Luxury villas worth hundreds of millions each now resembled bleak burial mounds rising from the snowfield. Luxury vehicles the wealthy once flaunted were frozen into lifeless metal husks. Yet amid all this desolation and despair, Villa No. 1 at Cloud Up Manor stood as a stark exception. At 9 o'clock in the morning, smart lighting inside the master bedroom flickered to life gradually. Soft light simulating morning sunshine spilled across the spacious, elegant European-style king bed. Lincia roused slowly from deep sleep and stretched lazily, her body brimming with renewed vigor. The thermostat mounted on the wall displayed a steady 26 degrees Celsius. The -50-degree freeze outdoors had zero impact on her fortified safe house. Lincia tossed aside the lightweight silk quilt and stepped barefoot onto polished solid wood flooring. Whole house underfloor heating sent a gentle, comforting warmth up through her soles. Clad in smooth, form-fitting silk pajamas, she walked toward the floor-to-ceiling bay window. Peering through the bulletproof glass and the observation slit built into the outer armor plating, she gazed silently out at the frozen wasteland beyond. Meow, a deep, resonant meow drifted in from the bedroom doorway. Seconds later, a large furry paw pushed the door open. A massive Maine Coon cat padded gracefully into the room. Named Bun, the cat had been Lincia's companion for 3 years. Bun padded over to Lincia's feet and rubbed its huge head gently against the hem of her pajamas. Lincia knelt down and stroked the thick, shaggy fur along its neck. She quickly noticed subtle, remarkable changes taking hold in Bun's physique. When the black snow first descended the previous night, Bun had darted onto the terrace before the outer armor panels fully sealed shut, brushing against a few flakes of the strange black snow. Lincia had rushed to bring the cat indoors immediately and found no obvious abnormalities during her initial inspection. But overnight, Bun's frame had visibly bulked up noticeably. Its already robust build had grown even sturdier and more muscular. When Lincia squeezed its foreleg lightly, she could feel firm, explosive muscle tissue beneath the fur. Even more striking were its ears. Its pointed ears fringed with long tufts twitched and rotated nonstop. The cat's hearing had grown extraordinarily acute. It could pick up faint sounds carried on the wind even through layers of bulletproof glass and heavy armor. Its pupils narrowed faintly each time distant branches cracked or snow slid down rooftops. Lincia understood that her beloved Maine Coon, reborn alongside her in this ruined world, was already adapting to the harsh apocalyptic environment. Unknown energy carried within the black snow was triggering beneficial mutations across its body. "You must be hungry. I've got a special treat for you today." Linxia patted Bun's back and led the cat toward the spacious open-concept kitchen. She retrieved a premium Wagyu cat food can, rarely obtainable even before the disaster, from her static storage space. The crisp pop of the pull tab opened the can, releasing a rich, savory meat aroma into the air. Bun wagged its bushy tail excitedly and buried its head in its dedicated food bowl, eating ravenously. After seeing to her pet, Linxia headed down to the second underground floor, where the central control room was located. This daily morning check was her unshakable routine. No matter how impenetrable her safe house was, power supplies and life support systems were the true foundation of survival. Standing before 6 massive curved display screens, she scanned the real-time operational data rapidly. Buried geothermal heat pumps ran smoothly, delivering consistent baseline warmth to the entire villa, sustained by the stable temperature of deep underground geological layers. 3 high-power silent diesel generators stood on standby, ready to kick into the internal power grid at any moment. The battery energy storage wall registered a full 100% charge with zero energy drain. Water purification filters and air circulation units hummed along quietly in the background. The black snow and deadly cold outside were entirely locked out by this flawless self-sustaining system. Once she confirmed all systems were functioning perfectly, Linxia returned to the dining room on the ground floor. The morning chores had left her with a healthy appetite. In this freezing climate where water froze solid the instant it was exposed to air, nothing beat a steaming hot pot for comfort. Linxia pulled an ornate brass hot pot from her storage space. She had modified the pot with an electric heating base to eliminate carbon monoxide buildup within the sealed building, preserving the classic charm of a traditional copper hot pot while remaining safe and convenient. She plugged it in and dropped a thick block of spicy beef tallow hot pot base into the vessel. As the temperature climbed, the solid base melted gradually. Scarlet chili oil bubbled up, filling the dining room with the bold, aromatic scent of Sichuan peppercorns and chili peppers. The safe house's advanced fresh air system automatically boosted exhaust ventilation to prevent lingering odors from accumulating indoors. Linxia turned back to arrange an array of ingredients across the dining table. A large plate of crisp beef tripe laid atop crushed ice, its surface lined with uniform raised ridges. Beside it sat paper-thin slices of snowflake beef, their marbled red and white flesh resembling polished marble. There were also plump fresh prawns, crisp dried stem vegetables, and assorted handcrafted meatballs. Ingredients that were easily purchasable with money in the pre-apocalyptic world were now priceless luxuries beyond measure. The spicy broth came to a rolling boil with a comforting gurgle. Linxia settled into her chair and picked up a pair of slender silver chopsticks. She lifted a generous slice of tripe and dipped it into the boiling red broth, lifting and lowering it rhythmically 7 times down and 8 times up to nail the perfect cooking time. The flat tripe curled slightly, coated glistening with fiery chili oil. She dragged the tripe through a dipping bowl filled with mashed garlic and sesame oil before biting into it. Crisp, springy texture blended with bold, spicy, savory flavors that burst vividly across her taste buds. She then picked up a slice of snowflake beef and submerged it in the boiling soup, watching the flesh slowly change color with the heat. Outside the window stretched a frozen hellscape of 50 degrees below zero, howling winds swirling endless black snow. Safe within her 26-degree warm sanctuary, Linxia relaxed completely as she savored her spicy hot pot meal. While Linxia enjoyed her hearty hot pot amid constant warmth in her fortified safe house, a drastically different scene unfolded at Jinjiang Mansion, more than a dozen kilometers away. Once a premium high-rise penthouse in the heart of City A, a status symbol for wealth and affluence, the 28th-floor Riverview apartment was now far colder than any outdoor ice cellar. Linxia had moved out 10 days prior, leaving no loose ends whatsoever. She had removed all furniture, appliances, clothing, and household food supplies from the premises. She had also arranged for workers to break every window latch and fastener, even stripping heavy wind-blocking curtains along with their curtain rods entirely from the walls. Ferocious 50-degree winds now swept unobstructed through the hollow, drafty apartment. Frigid currents whipped violently through the vast living room, producing eerie, wailing howls. A thin layer of dark frost had crusted across the high-grade solid wood flooring. Lija and Lin Wan huddled together in the farthest corner of the hall, unable to draw any warmth from one another's bodies despite pressing close. Not a single warm garment had been left behind in the apartment. They wrapped themselves in tattered cardboard scavenged from trash bins in the hallway, binding foul-smelling dirty rags around their necks and wrists in a futile attempt to fend off the piercing cold gnawing into their bones. Leisha bore no trace of the polished, charismatic corporate elite he once was. Hoarfrost crusted his formerly neatly combed hair, his handsome face was tinged blue with cold, his lips darkened to an unhealthy purplish-black shade. His teeth chattered uncontrollably in a rapid, clattering rhythm. Lin Wan fared even worse. Her once admired, delicate face was covered in red, swollen frostbite marks. Mucus dripping from her nostrils froze into clear icicles before she could wipe it away. Her fingers swelled into stiff, carrot-like lumps, each small bend sending stabbing pain shooting through her hands. Worse than the physical cold was the burning, gnawing hunger tearing at their stomachs. Neither had eaten anything since the black snowfall and catastrophic temperature drop late the previous night. Lin Wan had once trusted Leisha to handle every crisis just as he always had, expecting him to venture outdoors to find food and warm supplies when disaster struck. Reality dealt her a cruel, crushing blow. Leisha lacked even the strength to stand upright, doing nothing but shiver passively in the corner. "Brotherja, I'm so cold, I'm starving," Lin Wan whimpered weakly, her voice faint enough to be drowned out by the wind roaring outside. She tried pressing deeper into Leisha's embrace to absorb what little residual body heat he had left. In better days, Leisha would have pulled her tightly into his arms and soothed her with gentle words. Now he only felt Lin Wan's body like a solid block of ice leaching away his last reserves of warmth. He shifted his body away instinctively and shoved her shoulder roughly, his features twisted with obvious irritation. "Bear with it. Don't touch me. I'm freezing and starving too." Leisha's voice came out hoarse and harsh, thick with unmasked resentment. Why wasn't there any warning for this hellish weather? Lin Wan's heart ached sharply from his cold demeanor, hot tears pooling in her eyes. Tragically, tears froze instantly upon contact with the frigid air, stinging her cheeks painfully. For the sake of survival, the pair forced themselves to their feet to comb every inch of the empty apartment, desperate to find even a sip of water or a scrap of edible vegetation to sustain themselves. Linxia had left nothing behind, even cleaning out debris from the kitchen drain strainers. Every cabinet door hung wide open, barren down to the last grain of rice. Just as despair settled over them, and they prepared to curl back into the corner to await death, Leisha brushed a hard object lodged within a crack in a broken baseboard near the entryway. A jolt of excitement shot through him. With stiff, trembling fingers, he pried the item free slowly. It was a small plastic wrapper barely half the size of his palm, holding a dusty, half-eaten chocolate cream biscuit. The printed production date showed the treat had expired nearly 6 months prior. To the two people trapped in mortal peril, this stale crumb was infinitely more precious than pure gold. Leisha's bloodshot eyes blazed with frantic greed, a loud swallow echoing in his parched throat. He tore open the wrapper without wiping off dust and cobwebs, raising the biscuit straight to his mouth. "Brotherja, what did you find?" Lin Wan watched his movements intently and lunged forward like a starving feral cat the second she spotted the biscuit, green with desperate craving. "Let me take a bite. I'm dying of hunger, just one bite." She latched onto Leisha's arm tightly, fighting to snatch the food away. Leisha was startled by her wild outburst and lifted the biscuit high above his head. "Back off. I found this." His eyes blazed red, his features contorted into a savage snarl driven by primal survival instinct. "There's barely enough for me alone. Why should I share any with you?" Lin Wan stared at the man she once loved in stunned disbelief. This was the same person who had sworn his love for her was boundless, who claimed he would lay down his life for her without hesitation. "Leisha, have you no conscience at all? Who helped you profit from the Lin family's resources in the past? How can you refuse me even half a biscuit now? What kind of man are you?" Lin Wan completely discarded her gentle persona and bit Leisha's wrist violently. Leisha cried out in sharp pain and loosened his grip. The half-biscuit tumbled onto the dusty, debris-strewn floor. The two threw themselves at the tiny morsel like ravenous wolves, grappling violently amid dust and shards of broken glass scattered across the ground. Drawing on his greater physical strength, Leisha struck Lin Wan hard across the face without mercy. "Have you lost your mind? How dare you bite me?" He grabbed a fistful of her hair and slammed her head roughly against the wall corner. Blood trickled down Lin Wan's cheek and froze solid within seconds. She felt no pain whatsoever, her mind fixated solely on the life-giving biscuit. She scrambled across the floor on hands and knees and clamped both arms around Lija's legs, biting at his fingers as he bent to retrieve it. Lija roared in fury and kicked her forcefully in the abdomen, sending her sprawling backward across the room. Seizing the opening, Lija stuffed the dusty biscuit into his throat and swallowed it whole without chewing. The dry, crumbly snack scraped his esophagus, leaving a metallic tang in his throat, yet it tasted sweeter than any delicacy he had ever known. Lin Wan curled up on the floor, clutching her stomach, letting out broken, agonizing sobs of hopelessness. "Lija, you will pay for this." All their past vows of eternal affection and cloying sweet words shattered completely against the harsh reality of starvation and bitter cold. The tender bond they had pretended to share dissolved entirely over a single expired half-biscuit, stripping away every layer of civilized decency to reveal their selfish instincts. Consuming the biscuit brought Lija no real relief. The small amount of food only aggravated stomach spasms, amplifying his hunger tenfold. The apartment fell silent except for Lin Wan's quiet weeping and the unrelenting howl of the wind outside. Just as both resigned themselves to freezing to death inside the frigid apartment, a spare cell phone Lin Wan had hidden secretly in the center of the living room vibrated suddenly. At the very brink of total network collapse, the device had miraculously picked up a faint cellular signal. The faint glow of the screen cut starkly through the surrounding darkness. Ignoring her physical aches and injuries, Lin Wan scrambled across the floor to grab the phone. The screen displayed the caller ID, Uncle Lin Jiangwo. This relative had recently had his assets frozen and saddled with massive debts due to Lin Xia's prior dealings with him. Lin Wan's shaking fingers tapped the answer button and enabled speakerphone with stiff joints. "Uncle, please help us, we're freezing to death." Lin Wan screamed into the phone, her voice thick with desperate will to survive. Chaotic, panicked noises echoed in the background on Lin Jiangwo's end of the line. "Wanon? Are you with Lija right now?" Lin Jiangwo sounded furious and bitter. "Where exactly are you? Are you still trapped in that useless Jinjiang mansion apartment? Do not stay there to die. That drafty shell is unlivable in these conditions." Lin Wan and Lija exchanged a startled glance. Setting aside their earlier bitter fight, Lija scrambled over to huddle beside the phone, clinging to it as his last lifeline. "Uncle, we have nowhere left to go." Lin Xia stripped this place completely bare, leaving nothing usable at all. Lin Jiangwo let out a cold scoff over the line, speaking with venomous resentment as he revealed a shocking piece of information. "That vicious girl tricked every single one of us. I paid underground contacts for information just now. She never fled City A at all. She spent enormous sums covertly renovating a private residence starting half a month ago." Lin Wan froze on the spot, the pain in her abdomen vanishing entirely as she stared blankly at the phone screen. "What residence? Where did she get another property?" Jealousy and calculating malice dripped from Lin Jiangwo's tone. "She kept a property inherited from her mother hidden from all of us. It is a standalone villa fitted with an underground bunker and a full independent heating system. The property is Villa Number 1 at Cloud Up Manor, the prime plot of land on the entire estate." The night hung heavy and deep, with gales whipping black snow into a frenzied rage across the city's sky. Cloud Up Manor had been swallowed by total darkness. This once lavish enclave for the wealthy now resembled a frozen tomb abandoned by the rest of the world. The municipal power grid had collapsed completely more than 10 hours prior. Though the wealthy residents owned small emergency power generators, standard diesel engines refused to start amid the brutal 50-degree below zero cold. Even if an engine sputtered to life with great difficulty, low-grade fuel would quickly thicken into a gel and clog the fuel lines. The entire hillside lay shrouded in pitch blackness, not a single star visible overhead. Wind howled through bare tree branches, letting out shrill, unnerving shrieks. Only Cloud Up 1, perched atop the highest point, broke the pervasive gloom. Warm, steady yellow light spilled out from within its thick walls. Amid the raging snowstorm, the building stood like a beacon cutting through the darkness, yet remaining agonizingly out of reach to anyone outside. Inside the secure bunker, the temperature held steady at a comfortable 26 degrees Celsius. Lin Xia sat at the dining table, eating hot pot lamb from a copper pot at a leisurely pace. Premium lamb slices swirled in the spicy red broth, releasing a rich, fatty aroma. Fresh vegetables and handcrafted meatballs bobbed up and down in the boiling soup. She picked up a glass of iced cola beside her and took a satisfying gulp. The cold, sweet liquid slid down her throat, easing the mild warmth brought on by the spicy hot pot meal. The safe house was fitted with high-grade fresh air circulation and air purification systems. Originally designed to block toxic fumes and viral particles from seeping indoors, the equipment could also fully neutralize all odors generated inside the premises. With default settings active, no scent from anything Lin Xia cooked indoors could ever drift outside. Lin Xia set down her chopsticks and glanced at the surveillance monitors on the wall. Infrared feeds showed no signs of living movement across the snow-covered streets. A faint amused smirk tugged at her lips. Dining on hot pot alone was pleasant enough, yet the outside world had fallen far too silent. It had been one full day and night since the black snow descended. She wanted to test how many survivors in the vicinity still retained the physical capacity to move about. When people teetered on the brink of starvation and hypothermia, their sense of smell sharpened drastically. The scent of food would serve as the perfect lure. Lin Xia stood and walked over to the control console. Her slender fingers swept swiftly across the touchscreen to pull up the ventilation system dashboard. She deactivated the activated carbon filter on the exhaust ducts and switched the system to a short-duration external circulation mode. A soft hum emanated from the exhaust fans as internal pipe valves slowly rotated open. The potent fragrance of butter hot pot base, mingled with the scent of lamb and Sichuan peppercorns, surged unobstructed through concealed exhaust vents into the frozen wasteland outdoors. Carried by the fierce wind, the strong aroma spread rapidly in all directions. Inside Cloudtop Villa 2 next door, Mrs. Wang huddled with her family on the master bedroom's oversized king bed. They were wrapped beneath 3 or 4 costly silk quilts, topped with several sable fur coats for extra warmth. Even so, bone-chilling cold seeped up through the floorboards and burrowed into their bones. Mrs. Wang's face was tinged a sickly blue from freezing, her eyes hollow and fixed blankly on the ceiling above. The expensive imported fireplace in her home was useless, for they had no firewood. Just as hunger left her dizzy and lightheaded, a strange aroma drifted into her nostrils, a warm blend of spicy heat and rich fatty goodness. At first, Mrs. Wang dismissed it as a hallucination. In temperatures cold enough to burst water pipes, who could possibly be boiling hot pot? But the scent grew stronger by the second, overpowering the sharp icy tang hanging in the air. Her empty stomach cramped violently, and saliva pooled uncontrollably in her mouth. She threw off her bedding in a panic and scrambled toward the outdoor terrace. She pried the terrace door open a crack, and the overwhelming hot pot fragrance washed over her instantly. At the same moment, she spotted the brightly illuminated structure standing not far away. Cloudtop 1 glowed like a brilliant pearl amid the manor's all-consuming blackness. The same enticing scent drew survivors from several other nearby villas. Aunt Lu, who once flooded the neighborhood group chat with health articles, was gnawing on shriveled apple peels to stave off hunger. Upon catching the smell, she bolted out of her home in a frenzy. Other neighbors swaddled in thick winter garments also followed the scent outdoors. Meanwhile, 2 ragged figures struggled to climb the winding mountain road leading up to the manor. They were Lija and Lin Wan, who had fled all the way from the city center. After receiving a phone call from Lin Jiangwo, they had frantically located an unlocked abandoned SUV by the roadside. Using the last remnants of gasoline in the tank, they crashed through piles of derelict vehicles and drove as far as the mountain foothills. The vehicle got stuck halfway up the slope beneath deep snowdrifts and was rendered completely inoperable. Desperate to stay alive, the pair trekked uphill on foot against the 50-degree below-zero gale. Knee-deep black snow sapped their strength with every single step they took. Thick layers of ice crusted over their eyebrows and hair. Lin Wan wore flimsy footwear. Her toes had long since gone numb, each step feeling as though she were treading on sharp blades. Large dark purple frostbite lesions marred Lija's cheeks, creating a grotesque sight. The cardboard sheets they had wrapped around their bodies for insulation had been torn apart by the wind long ago, leaving them to huddle tightly together to share body heat. Just as they neared total collapse from freezing to death, the bold aroma of hot pot reached them. It was a beacon of survival, an unmistakable call of sustenance. A feral glint ignited in Lija's eyes as he locked his gaze on the bright glow atop the mountain. "It's over there. There's food, hurry." He pulled away from Lin Wan, who could barely stand upright, and scrambled forward. Fueled by overwhelming survival instinct, the two stumbled onward until they finally reached the front gates of Cloudtop 1. When they arrived, 7 or 8 familiar faces were already huddled against the compound wall, shivering violently. Mrs. Wang, Aunt Lu, and other wealthy neighbors from the residential complex all stood rooted to the spot, staring at the scene ahead in stunned silence. The ornate wrought iron gate they had known was gone entirely. In its place stood an imposing titanium alloy composite armored gate. Seamlessly embedded within reinforced, heightened concrete perimeter walls, the gate glinted with cold, hard metallic luster. Against this massive barrier, the gathered survivors were no stronger than swarms of ants. Peering past the gate, the villa's exterior had undergone a drastic transformation. Original floor-to-ceiling windows were replaced with 100mm thick composite bulletproof glass. Heavy forged steel armor plating had lowered to cover half the glass surface, encasing the entire building in an impenetrable shell. Even a heavy engineering vehicle ramming the walls would fail to leave so much as a scratch on this defensive casing. What struck them most profoundly was the view visible through the bulletproof glass. Crystal chandeliers cast soft, brilliant light across the spacious living room within. Thick carpeting and plush sofas filled the space, creating an aura of calm tranquility. Not a single trace of frost or condensation coated the interior walls. The rich, tantalizing hot pot aroma billowed out continuously from rooftop exhaust vents. The warm, bright sanctuary inside stood in brutal, stark contrast to the frozen hellcape of -50°C outside. Lige's eyes bulged, his lips trembling uncontrollably. Lin Wan crumpled onto the snow-covered ground, her face etched with total disbelief. Mrs. Wang and the other neighbors froze in place, their minds reeling with sudden realization. All the scattered clues clicked into place at once. The perimeter walls abruptly raised overnight, construction crews working round the clock, truckloads upon truckloads of premium ingredients being delivered to the property. And this unbreachable steel fortress standing before their eyes. They finally understood the truth. Lin Xia had possessed advance, confidential intelligence regarding the impending catastrophe. Using billions in capital earned from selling her corporate assets, she had built this impenetrable safe haven well before disaster struck.